All right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you. And let's party! Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the live party. Guys, that is the best part. So make sure you are here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe, ring the bell, and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. Let's also say thank you to the IndianJesus.com, the only place to get your very own Indian Jesus official merch, like our projection shirt, only at the IndianJesus.com. All right, guys, I am excited. If you have been watching for a while, you should be too. So you've definitely seen that, we've been talking a lot about Peter Boghossian. Shout out to Peter Boghossian, who actually came on the channel as a guest. And we've also seen a lot from Rationality Rules, aka Stephen Woodford, the other guy on the left here. And in many ways, I really respect both gentlemen. Now, the problem is that our Rationality Rules guy here is typical. Well, let me not say typical atheist, but in typical atheist fashion, he is very on board with the LGBT agenda and doesn't really seem to understand that it's not just bigotry to be against it, and that there's way more into it. Shout out to Soul in the building. Welcome to the party, guys. If you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
Why, hello, my fellow apes. I hope you are well. Recently, I made a series of criticisms to several things that have been said pertaining to gender and the transgender movement as a whole. And one in particular involved Peter Boghossian's interview with Richard Dawkins about Aristotelian metaphysics.
We covered that one too.
This led to Peter having Colin Wright, biologist, come on his show to critique what me and Forrest, biologist,
and we covered that one as well. So if you remember, it was a split screen between that guy,
Colin Wright, biologist, come on his show to critique what me,
this guy, and Rationality Rules, the Mohawk guy. They were talking about how crazy the Richard Dawkins and Peter Boghossian conversation was, and how out of touch they were. So now he's sitting right in front of him, and let's see if not only does he hold his opinion, but that smug attitude that he had all throughout the video.
Forrest, biologist, had to say in response to Richard Dawkins. And long story short, we decided to meet up in London to have a conversation to hopefully make some progress on a topic that so many people by my lights are just unable to have rational discourse about. So that's the plan. We'll see whether or not we can make it. Peter, thanks for
cool. Well, thanks for you guys for driving up here to London. So what I want to do is just facilitate a conversation between you two, and my goal in all this, there's no gotchas or anything. I'm genuinely trying to understand. So I'll repeat back to you and Colin, if I think my golden rule is I try to understand. And if I don't understand, then I'll ask a question about whatever it is to help me understand.
And that's why I love Peter Boghossian so much, because he is very good at facilitating conversation and getting to the ideas that we want to talk about, and getting around the social, BS that gets in the way of these conversations.
So where I want to start before we get into any details or nitty-gritty, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page with the definition of words. Because yes, I have found overwhelmingly when there's a disagreement, something, people using words differently, or
semantic obfuscation.
They don't mean the same things by words. So that's where I'd like to start.
And that's where philosophy starts, right? Yep. That's where you get to your bedrock. You need to make sure that you're working with the same premises. But I did have a question there. It sounds like you want to sit as a third person in this conversation, whereas I want you in as a participant. You've made plenty of content pertaining to this. You're the philosopher.
Yeah.
Colin is the biologist. And I think that I want both angles. So please don't sit as a third person.
Yeah, I do see it as third person, because I see the conversation as a biological conversation. But let's.
So he is going to be the moderator. He is not going to be getting into the weeds of the discussion. Again, just facilitating the discussion. But if you're not familiar with Colin Wright, he is definitely equipped to have this conversation. And they are definitely working together. And they have, we did I think it was a member stream where there was a Destiny debate that was broken down, and they had like the different cards, and they have something like that here. And I am excited. So the Soul said, always good to start by making sure everyone has the same definitions for words. Getting harder and harder for that these days. Yup.
See how it evolves.
Well,
Let's get the definitions
and
see how it evolves.
Be put on there, okay, because that pertains to the definitions. I think the conversation also is of philosophical importance and also of psychological and anthropological importance. It's not entirely biological. Otherwise, we'd only be talking about sex and not gender.
Okay, well, let's just define our words and see where we go.
All right.
So let's see. The first word is, so I think we have 4 words that are key here.
Sure.
And feel free to add additional words as we go along.
Mm-hmm.
Man, woman, male, female.
So that's what I was saying, that little...
And Colin, please don't hesitate. I think those are the key terms about which the potential misunderstanding, or maybe it's actually not a misunderstanding. Those are the key terms. So I think it's of indispensable importance that we start here and see if we can agree before we do anything else, if we can agree upon these terms. Now, we if there's a point where we don't agree, then we can just use them as placeholders temporarily until we refine it later on. Okay.
Hey, shout out to Zippy the Strange. Welcome to the party. A little bit of a low-key way to say happy birthday, Zippy the Strange. Welcome to the party. You better wake up, boy. We got a party. Welcome.
So let's do that. Let's go with the definition of man. Stephen, you want to do yours, and then Colin, you can.
So the way that I would define a man to be, it's someone who lives up to a social construct that heavily correlates with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors.
Phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. A social construct that heavily correlates with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. So that's his definition of what a man, woman, whatever they were saying was. Shout out to M169 in the building. Welcome.
That's the way I define a man.
Okay, so someone who lives up to
a social construct.
Someone who lives up to a social construct
that is typically associated.
Write it down directly, verbatim.
You've got a good job here, Reed.
Yeah, that is typically
shout out to Reed. For those of you who don't remember, Reed was in the chat when Peter Boghossian was here. Shout out to Reed.
With phenotype. Aesthetics and behaviors.
And behaviors. Okay, so I'm going to read that back to make sure that's accurate, okay? Someone who lives up to a social construct that is typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. Is that right?
Yeah, that's the definition I think has the most utility.
Oh, okay, well...
So notice what he said there, that this is the definition that has the most utility. And they're going to die like, well, okay, I would think that we want to just like get a definition. And the definition is the definition. So now we're talking about multiple definitions.
Okay, Colin, what is that? How you use the word man? Is that the understanding you have of the definition of man?
That's not how I use the term, but I understand that is what I would call sort of the generic definition used in sort of the gender framework. And so that's something I'd be happy to talk about, why I disagree with that definition, why I think it might be regressive or something like that.
Put an S up there. So yeah, in that box. Okay, so instead of, there's no disagreement yet, there's only understanding. What is your definition of man? Because we have Stephen's. What is yours?
Mine is very simple and one that Stephen probably anticipates. It's an adult human male.
There we go. We go.
So Reed will write that down. Adult human male. Okay. I don't want to be pedantic, but I do want to go through the rest of these terms.
No, I'm fine with being pedantic. I think one of the reasons why people get stuck on this and dismiss people with, label and dismiss terms on both sides is
If you know what I'm laughing at, you know.
because they're not
Well, you
doing
definitely
this homework.
I 100%
right?
agree.
So don't worry,
100%.
we'll take our time on it. It's very important.
I 100% agree. Okay. So is it fair then to say that the definition of woman is exactly what the definition of man is,
Yes.
but with a woman? So I'm going to repeat that so that everybody's clear.
And again, the beginning part is a little bit tedious. They're getting through the definitions and everything. So, but I think it's really important to the rest of the conversation. I'm even thinking we might not even do an after party tonight and just stick with this so we can cover it. But we'll figure that out when we get there. But I know the beginning's a little bit tedious, but as we all agree on that, definitions are extremely important.
Someone who lives up to a social construct that is typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is accurate. Yeah.
Okay. So, and then Colin, I assume, and if this assumption makes an ass out of you and me, let me know that your definition of woman is analogous with just the substitution of female, adult human female. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
All right.
We now have what we mean by the terms woman and man, and the next one. So no disagreement yet.
No. But there might be some.
It's not hard, guys. The fact is that they know what the answer is. And again, I am parroting Dr Boghossian himself. They know what the right answer is. They just think about what they're supposed to say. Now, I'm not going to put that on Stephen here. But absolutely with most people, because he's not hiding away from anything here. But most people, that's what it is. It's not hard. What's hard is figuring out, how do I know this and express that I agree with the incorrect position that it's all this gobbledygook. I'm crazy, depressed to look for hard change. I have to redefine words because the world is not the way they want it. So they have to change anything that they can.
Thing that, of course, people might be confused about, and that isn't my definition.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point to me, because it's like, if I can't be happy, I'm just going to change the definition of the word happy, and it means alive. Well, now I'm happy. What? That's literally how they think about this stuff. It's all just a game to be moved around. Truth doesn't matter. Power doesn't matter. All that stuff. It's just that's exactly what it is. I'm not happy, so I'm going to change the definition of what happy is so that I can be happy, not ever caring if I actually experience happiness. Things virtues. Yeah, exactly.
Agreement yet?
No. But there might be something that, of course, people might be confused about, and that isn't my definition for a man. It's the same for a woman. We'll unpack this later, I'm certain, but just so that I can preempt it. The work is being done on the differences of the phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. But we will get to that when we come to the unpacking.
Okay, let's
preempting. I may be reading a little bit too into this, because as we just saw, Stephen asked for it to be a 2v1. So he might be trying to, kind of posture as to what he thinks possible refutations might be. But it's not a good look.
I just want to secure this so that everybody's on the same page when we have the conversation. Okay, so the definition of male, Stephen, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. So one of the reasons why I insist that this is more of a philosophical and psychological and anthropological conversation is because I'm actually less concerned with the distinction of sex and gender, and particularly with sex. It's gender I'm more interested in.
Okay, so the
my
definition,
my definition of a male would be someone who typically has XY chromosomes, and if you want to, you can add to that someone who has would have testicles and produce small gametes.
Okay, so I'm going to read this back to make sure that I understand.
I'm sure it will be very similar to what Colin has. So I'm happy to rephrase it once we see what he's doing.
Okay, so I'm just going to read this back. The definition of male.
I really do want to get to the discussion part, so we'll speed this up a little bit. Let me know if it's too fast. Don't feel, because it's not just you guys watching, so let me know if it's too fast.
Someone who typically has XY chromosomes and or testicles and produce.
And.
So no or.
No.
Okay. someone who typically has XY chromosomes and testicles and produces small gametes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Clownfish, yep.
I believe that is. I'll refine it if we get down the line.
Okay. Oh, yeah, we can always refine these later. That's fine. Colin, the definition of a male is what?
So a male is someone or an organism whose primary reproductive anatomy is organized around or has the function to produce small gametes or sperm.
Organized around or has the function to produce small gametes. And so that means even if your dick don't work, that doesn't make you a woman.
Okay, so all right, so Reed is typing this out.
I don't
so
include chromosomes in my definition of male or female.
Okay, don't tell me what you don't include. I just want to get it down. Yeah, someone who's can you say that again, please?
Yeah, whose primary reproductive anatomy is organized around or has the function to produce small gametes.
So that's where we're at so far. Definition of male, someone who has, Steven says, someone who typically has XY chromosomes, testicles, and produces sperm. And Colin said someone whose primary reproductive anatomy is organized around or has the function to produce sperm. Hey, shout out to Dr. Evil Genius in the building, waking Morty up with a $10 super chat. No question, no comment, just pure love of the game. Thank you so much, sir. Welcome to the party. Always good to see you. Another awesome YouTuber here. You guys should definitely go check them out. Just drop the link to the channel. Again, brother, thank you so much. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream.
Can I ask what your primary reproductive is doing?
Hold on. Let me just. I want to repeat this back to make sure that we got this right. Someone whose primary reproductive anatomy is organized around or has the function to produce small gametes. Is that correct? Is that what you said to us?
Yeah, I would actually maybe substitute instead of anatomy, say organs.
Shout out
Someone
again.
whose primary reproductive organs
Yeah.
are organized around or has the function to produce small gametes. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so talking
so
more
before
about the idea that again, that you can't say, well, what about a guy who got in an accident and his balls don't work? That's just cutting away that it is what it's organized to do.
Ask anything or criticize anything. I just want to get
Yep,
everything
yeah,
down.
go ahead.
Okay, so can you tell us the definition of female, Stephen?
Looks like Reed's doing it for us. Someone who typically has XX chromosomes. It would be ovaries and produces large gametes.
Hey, shout out to Guam Tech. Welcome to the party. A smashing good time indeed. Welcome. Good to see you, brother.
Okay, so I'm going to read this back to make sure this is clear. Someone who typically has XX chromosomes, ovaries, and produces large gametes. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, yeah.
Okay, so Stephen, can you please give us your definition? I'm sorry, dude. So Colin, can you please give us your definition of female?
Yeah, so an organism whose primary reproductive organs are organized around or has the function to produce large gametes.
Eggs.
So same as male, but swap in large instead of small.
It's almost like they're like two categories that are very similar, but like they're the opposite, but they complement each other, and it's like a perfect binary.
Okay, and on this, what Reed is doing, he has eggs there. Do you want the word eggs in there or no?
That's fine because eggs are the large gamete. So
I just want to get it from him verbatim. Okay, so let's go all the way up to the top again. Okay, so now what I want to do is no criticism of any idea. I just want to make sure that everybody understands how we're about to use these words. So Stephen's definition of man is, and again, thank you for allowing me to spend so much time on this. This is
I
of
would have insisted to do the same.
indispensable importance.
yes, thank you. I
Great.
appreciate it too.
Great. And that's again why I appreciate you guys sticking with me while they're going through this before they actually get into the debate.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so the definition of man is someone who lives up to a social construct that is typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. That's Stevens. Colin is an adult human male. Okay, so I'll kick off to you first, Colin. Not do you agree or disagree, but do you understand that sentence?
Yes.
Okay.
Peter, can I ask you if you understand it?
Huh?
Can I understand what your view is of that as well?
No,
Because you
Like, nope. I'm moderating.
I understand that you've issued criticism at me as well.
No,
so
no,
I would
look,
really like it if you can get
So
involved.
I just want.
That's what it is. Because Peter has specifically said stuff about Stephen, so he wants to get that. But I think this is a really good like I understand that from a personal level, that like, yo, you said some shit about me. I'd like to address that. But I think for the larger purpose of understanding this topic, it is better to just come and talk about the science of it. And that doesn't have to be the end of the conversation. That should be the beginning of the conversation. Now that we have the understanding of biology, now we are more equipped to get into the philosophical aspects of what is a man, what is gender, what is all that stuff. Hey, shout out to Indie Film. Welcome to the party. I was hoping you were going to be here tonight. Our boy, Viking Steve, is going up against, well, technically Colin Wright, but as we saw them fighting it out, they have finally made it together for the showdown. Welcome to the party, brother. Always good to see you.
You have to understand that you've issued criticism at me as well.
No,
I would really like it if you can get involved.
So I'm attempting to facilitate this conversation, and I'm looking only for clarity, and I'm not putting a third
So you're
box
not
on it.
interested in having a conversation with someone you voice disagreement with?
No, I'm interested in facilitating this particular conversation. I want to.
That was a little dig.
This. So, Stephen, do you understand, not do you agree with, his definition of adult human male?
Yep.
Okay, so we all understand that. Okay, so
all right, so we're all
by extension, let's
and real philosophy. If you're actually trying to get to the truth of the universe and the things that aren't necessarily measurable by a ruler or whatever, then you really do need to go through the tedious art, really, of laying the foundation and getting your definitions. Otherwise, you're lost. Shout out to Virgil Kane, all the way over from Manchester, England. Welcome to the party, brother.
Let's go down to woman. I assume it's the same. Do you each understand, not agree with, but understand the definition of the other?
Yep.
Colin?
Yes.
All right.
Okay. So let's go down to definition of male. I'm going to go to Stephen first because his thing is on the top. Do you understand Colin, not agree with, but understand Colin's definition?
Yes. So let's go through it. He's saying someone whose primary reproductive organs. So I assume that means, let's put aside secondary reproductive organs. I'm not sure what primary is doing here. If you could clarify that for me, Colin, that would be useful.
This is referring specifically to the gonads.
Okay, so if you didn't have the word primary there, would that be a problem?
Yes, because a secondary reproductive organ would be something like a penis or a scrotum or labia, and then secondary sex characteristics are sort of what you gain during puberty, what differentiates us further.
So in this case, a penis wouldn't count as the organ; it would have to be the testicles.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That like we're at the point of having a dick is almost irrelevant in this context to whether or not you're a man. That's how granular they've made this. It can't be like, oh, you have a dick and hair on your face, so you're a man. But here we go.
Okay, cool. That makes sense.
So that's clear to you.
That part makes clear. He's also specified that they are organized around or have the function. So what this preempts is that they don't need to function. So if someone's born and they have testicles, but they don't work, which is to say that they don't facilitate what the chromosomes have got them to do, it would still count as a male on Colin's view.
That is correct. I don't think something needs to be actively functional in order to have a function. Sort of like a car can break down, but it's still.
Yep. And I appreciate that nuance in the definition. So yes, it seems like I do understand that.
Okay, so now
Virgil, I genuinely do not know what that means.
I'm going to ask a question just so that I'm clear. Someone whose primary reproductive organs, testicles, are organized around or has the function to produce small gametes, and you're okay with the word sperm in there?
Yep.
Okay.
That's an interesting sentence.
Next, let's go down to female. Okay. Definition of female.
Might be worth seeing whether or not he agrees with my definition of male. I don't know if we.
I'm sorry. Did I fuck that up? Screw that up. Okay. Sorry about that. My bad. Okay, Stephen, you gave this definition.
We're going to
read, and Colin, you tell me if this is clear and so Stephen.
So we're actually now finally we're going to get the biologist to directly address this guy's definition of male. Or
gave someone who typically has XY chromosomes, testicles, and produces small gametes. Do you have any questions about that?
No questions, but personally, I would exclude chromosomes as being like a necessary component of being biologically male, and also the idea that you need to be actively producing small gametes, which I don't know if that's entailed in your definition or not. But
well, we might be able to get rid of that. So maybe you can help me with this.
Yeah.
No better to ask a biologist, right? It seems to me that the reproductive organs that you're talking about, they are actually predicated on the chromosomes. The chromosomes are the things that tell it to be produced that way. So they're in some set a subset of the set of chromosomes. So that is why I have chromosomes there, and also because it's a very high correlation, which is things we'll get into a little later. So
right, and again, it's only when we're getting super granular about this stuff where we're going to say, oh, the penis itself, it doesn't matter when we're talking about are you a man. The chromosomes themselves don't matter when you're talking about a man. But if they want to bring it here, we got this. We got this.
So if you have in, say, your definition and my definition, testicles and the ability to produce small gametes, if these two things are essentially predicated on chromosomes, wouldn't it be fair to add chromosomes to that list? Or why is it that you wouldn't?
So I wouldn't add chromosomes.
I'm gonna guess that he's not gonna add chromosomes because of the fact that people can have weird fucked up chromosomes, and that doesn't change the fact that there is a category of male and there is a category of female, and there might be a bimodal overlap with these intersex people, but there's not more than two categories. There's two categories, and then there's the exceptions. That's my guess.
Well, first and foremost, because if you want to just like stand back and survey the whole animal kingdom, the whole animal and plant kingdoms, any species that has males and females, not all of them have sex chromosomes. They don't determine sex with genes on chromosomes. And then secondarily, it's not necessarily the chromosomes themselves that are causing an organism to develop or a human to develop into a male and female. It's specific genes on regions of chromosomes. And there are instances, for instance, where like the SRY gene, which is the gene that makes males develop into males or that causes male development, can be like transposed onto an X. So you can have like XX males.
So he's not saying that chromosomes are irrelevant to what your sex is. What he's saying is, for the purposes of your position, I'm willing to throw out that having XX chromosomes does not determine your sex, and I can still say that there's only two genders.
In some instances.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page about what these things are. So, Stephen, how do you define chromosomes? And then, Colin, I'm going to ask you if you accept that definition.
As I said, sex is not the main field that I'm interested in. So I understood, or how I understand it, is sex chromosomes, what their role and what they do is they produce the testicles, they lead to these this apparatus that both Colin and I use in our definitions. As for like the specifics of what they are.
Congratulations.
Okay. Do you accept that, Colin?
Well, I don't think you gave a definition. I don't know if they're just these entities where like DNA is wrapped around them and it helps organize the genome essentially.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, I mean, I asked because it's in the definition of male, and so we would need to know what the words are that we're using to define males.
Yeah. A chromosome is just like a vector, a thing that carries genes, but genes can be swapped around from chromosomes. There's nothing inherently about the chromosome itself. It's really the genes that are on the chromosomes, and those genes can be in different places, and they would still be expressed.
Right. So all these people that are saying, well, there's men with XX or what I always fucking mix them up, but you know what I mean. It doesn't matter. Like, okay, fine, throw it out the window. Throw it out the window, and I still have two genders.
Okay. So, Reed, where were we here? Where were we? Definition of female, and what were we doing? Were we asking? Oh yeah. So, not do you agree, but do you understand? And do you have any questions about wanting to, further define a term, or not do you agree, but do you understand? So the definition of female, Stevens, is someone who typically has XX chromosomes, ovaries, and produces large gametes. So, Colin, do you have any questions for Stephen about that, or do you think that you understand that? Not agree, but just understand.
Oh my God, Virgil, you indeed are my favorite troll. Welcome to the party. Libby said you could say behavior has little to do with gender, for argument's sake. Averages say another thing, but averages should not limit individuality. Fair enough. Gonzag said, you can't tell me my gametes are small. Everything a real man does is big. I'm a big man with big muscles and big gametes. Only betas are small. You have small gametes, buddy. Where's my beard? Comment of the night, I think, at least so far. Dilly to that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I understand it. Yes.
Okay. Collins was someone whose primary reproductive organs are organized around or have the function to produce large gametes, and then the word in parentheses is eggs. So, Stephen,
I have a clarifying question, if that's all right,
sure,
Colin.
of course.
All right, here we go. Here we
What you
go.
specified about chromosomes not being across the board for males and females, fantastic point, absolutely the case.
Real quick though, seriously, shout out to you guys, because I know that there's not a lot of people who would sit around for half an hour to get the debate ready to go just in order to hear the debate. So you guys are the real ones.
Thanks for bringing that up. When it comes to humans, what role do the chromosomes play in producing these organs? Are they always something that produce these organs, or are they not?
Yeah, it's an extremely tight correlation, but it's really specific genes that are on the chromosomes. So like when we say that males have XY chromosomes because there's a gene on the Y chromosome called SRY, and that's sort of what kicks development down the male pathway. And so it's not the chromosome itself that is causing the male to develop, it's a specific region of genes on the chromosome, and that can be transposed. Doesn't necessarily reside always on a Y chromosome, even though it almost always does.
And so as I'm watching this, I'm literally just trying to see the arguments and point out what's going on with this argument and what's going on with this argument, and I'll obviously give my opinion. But what I need to hear in order to be moved at all is that there is something wrong with the gender binary biologically. So that's the task that Stephen has. Dr. Boghossian said, I'm still here. I'm technically still here, but I'm annoyed. Oh, we just getting into it, brother. We are just getting into it. And even said an old fashioned helps me get through the tedious stuff. Yep. Delete to that.
Thank you. So would that mean, if I'm understanding correctly, that there are going to be some people that can produce large gametes, and yet it's not delivered through chromosomes at all? Or is it that the chromosomes are always involved in this process for them to get to the ability to have that biological apparatus?
Yeah, you're always going to have chromosomes because all the genes are on the chromosomes, but it's not, you don't need to have sort of XY to create a male or XX to create a female. There are some females who are sort of XXY if the SRY shut down on the Y chromosome. So you can have females with the Y chromosome, and you can have males that have no Y chromosome. Very rare.
And there's still only two genders.
It exists.
Okay, so go back up and scrunch it in a little bit. Okay, yeah. Okay, so we now have got the definition of a man, the definition of a woman, the definition of male, the definition of female. We've secured definitions. We've secured understanding before and we've given everybody the opportunity to ask questions about the other definitions. So I think that's been a success. So now let's talk about points of, we can talk about points of disagreement and points of agreement. So.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yeah.
I know you want to direct it, and I think you're doing a great job.
No, if I'm making a mistake.
I do want to ask a question here. So one of the things that comes up in this conversation, especially with gender, again, I'm not so interested in sex, but I understand that your view has them very close, so we have to, using these definitions, bring them on board. One of the things that seems to be put across a lot is that there is a right answer to what gender is.
Okay, but that's not, we can do gender, we can put the word, but we're not, there's nowhere in there that gender come up.
No.
Right, and notice how it's very easy to have the biological conversation if it doesn't step on your philosophical, political, whatever argument about trans and infinite genders and all that stuff. The fact that he's trying to move the conversation to gender when that's not what we're talking about. We're doing this in a tedious manner. What is a male? What is a man? What is a woman? What is a female? We will get there. But the fact that you're trying to jump ahead and be like, this is the thing, it's not a good look. Not a good look.
If you allow me to land the point, then if it's not relevant, fine, we'll put it across.
Fair enough.
What happens is people will say there is a right answer to this, and therefore there's no room for rational disagreement. So we're not talking about the utility of definitions, rather, I'm right and you're deranged. That's
So, all right, wait, I'll ask you.
That's what happens across the board with someone who has my view. And what I want to know, I'd like to know if you have that view as well. Like, is there room for rational disagreement? But I understand that you don't want to participate in this.
Well,
and I want to know yours as well, Colin. I want to know, is there room for rational disagreement on this? Can two rational people say, I have a different view to you, but I see the utility in your view, and it's not wrong, it's just it's not the one that I prefer.
So that's a very interesting point to set forward, because if he's in the position where he's saying, if I can't move you, you think that you are dogmatically correct and I am dogmatically incorrect, then there's no conversation to be had. So I think that's a good, a good thing to kind of put out there.
Okay, so the reason that I want to pause that is because I'm more than happy to go down that road. I want to delineate, I want to keep this as narrow at the moment, and 100% we will go down the gender. I just want to do just these words. Definitions, secure understanding, what is a possible point of agreement, what is a possible point of disagreement. I'm more than happy to jump into gender, like 100%.
Yeah, and you're only going to get that in a very small scale in one conversation. So to try to solve the whole thing in one conversation is not a number one, it's not a good idea. Number two, it's not good for business. People are loving this shit, and you're going to try and squinch it all into one thing. Bro, you got 3, 4, 5 different conversations here. Let's ride. Let's ride.
I want to make sure we're using these correctly.
Isn't my point, however, pertaining to this? So we've done a great job of getting the definitions on the board. The next question is there room for rational disagreement, or do you think that the other person is objectively wrong? Like there is a right and wrong answer to the question. That's important for moving forward.
You mean a right and wrong answer to
the definitions that have been given here, for instance?
Yeah.
I would say I can understand why someone might have the view of gender that Colin's put across.
Okay.
And I can see that there's room for rational disagreement.
What about you guys? The definitions that they've given so far, specifically the man and woman versus a male and female, would you be willing to continue this conversation and say, I disagree with that definition, but I accept that it is possible and reasonable for somebody to have that definition without the information that I'm about to give you to change your mind? Would you, or would you just say, no, you're just wrong, and it's there's no room, as he's saying, for rational disagreement?
I'm going to argue for why I think mine has greater utility, but I'm not going to say that Colin is deranged. And what I'm asking is whether or not that is extended to me from your side, or is it that no?
At the moment, I'm not taking a side. I'm just trying to.
Yeah.
But Colin, did you want to comment?
Yes, I will say that I agree with Stephen. People can hold these two definitions. I'm happy to disagree on the utility or even the ethics, I think, of these definitions and things like that. Yeah,
that's what we hear.
If we want to focus and talk on gender, but there is room for rational debate on this. That's why I'm
doing it.
Yeah. Can I land that?
Do it.
Sorry, I don't mean to be rude, but honestly, I really care about the clarity. But one of the things that's put across with people in your audience when it comes to myself, and it's one of the things we need to fix about the discourse, is they will say this person has taken a woke pill, and they're now in a position where they're rejecting reality. But what Colin's just made clear, and correct me if I'm mistaken, Colin, is what he's made clear is no, it's not people like Steve are rejecting reality. Rather, what it is they see greater utility in a different definition. Okay. That is a vital thing that we need to fix in order to progress the conversation. I don't know if you agree, Colin.
I do.
Okay, yeah. A big problem.
So you mentioned the word utility like 10 times.
I like that, Guamtech. Getting the ideas out there, getting the whether you want to call it rhetoric or whatever, but getting the argument out there. I think that is really good. Either way, I agree with you. I would still have the conversation, but asking that question definitely would change how I'm approaching. Because if I'm looking to change your mind, then I'm going to speak to you in a different way than if I'm speaking to you to try to change other people's minds. Good point. Dr. Boghossian said, I think there are naturally complicated subjects in the world. Gender and sex isn't one of them. Just my opinion. I said, shit, me too, brother. Zibita Strange said, definitions I assume, overly complex, but okay, explain why there are 2 billion genders when behavior is the only key logical difference. That's like I said, he's got a tall order. I am always willing to have my mind change. I am 100% willing. I'm looking directly at you. I am 100% willing to come away from this conversation and agree that there are more than 2 genders. I am willing to do that. But Stephen, you've got work to do.
Agree, Colin.
I do.
Okay. Yeah. A big problem.
So you mentioned the word utility like 10 times. I'm not sure if utility should be the concept that's invoked for this. I'm happy to consider it as a possibility. I have to secure the definitions before I do anything else. So if the question is, can 2 rational people can disagree about how Wittgenstein word, how a word is used, if it should be this word, this detail, to make sure that everybody's on the same page. And I don't want to put any new terms in. I don't want to put utility in. I don't want to put gender in. I just want to make sure that every time we move forward, when you use the word woman, everybody knows what you're talking about. When he uses the word woman, everybody knows what he's talking about. I just want to make sure that there's a fundamental understanding.
Yeah, we've done it.
Colin, do you have a disagreement with Stephen's definition of man?
Okay, so now we're getting into the disagreements. Let's go.
Yes, I don't think it's a good or ethical definition of man.
Ooh, ethical.
Okay, can you please tell him why?
because I guess I sort of reject the premise that the notion of being a man or a woman has nothing to do with biology and everything to do with identity. I think that it's important to root these concepts, man and woman, in biology, because I believe that a lot of the oppression that people have faced, women especially, has been on the basis of their biological sex and not necessarily how they happen to identify. And so this idea that a man and a woman are defined sort of, let me see, by what you said, if they live up to a social construct that includes biology, behavior, phenotype, and aesthetics of what we consider to be, feminine or masculine.
Well, he's saying that the woke definition is he didn't say it's an ethical definition. He said that that definition is unethical. So I'm definitely, I don't know what the fuck he means by that, but I'm definitely interested to hear.
I view this as a regressive definition of what being a man or a woman means, not living up to these sort of stereotypes of masculinity and femininity. And
isn't that what it all comes down to? If your position is that there is nothing that is innate and rooted in reality that is your sex or gender, either one, then all you are saying is, or all you're doing is collecting stereotypes. You have the male stereotypes that go to the men, and you have the female stereotypes that go to the women. And I don't think that gets us anywhere. Like, how does that help society in any way?
I think it's better to take the liberal approach that we've maybe had 10 years ago, well, at least most people had, where a woman was just...
I'm going to pause you. I'm going to pause you instead of like taking the approach. I just want to make sure that... So he gave a criticism of that idea. Do you agree with the criticism of the definition?
What do you mean by agree with the criticism of the definition? Do you understand the criticism?
No. Or do you understand the criticism?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
yeah.
What do you think of the criticism? What's your...
Yes, okay, so just so I'm making sure I'm not crossing my wires, when you guys were responding to what I had to say about Aristotelian metaphysics, you said that you weren't interested and so moved on. And this is where Colin drops a couple of entailments of the regressiveness that was just pointed out, like going backwards, focusing on things that women or men should have in terms of aesthetics and behaviors, which we've been fighting against, right? It's what we've been trying to move against. Is it fair that the criticism there, the second one, Colin, that's basically capturing what you were saying in that response to me?
Yeah, I believe so. We should remove the...
Facts, bro. Dr. Evil Genius said, when words cease to have meaning, you can justify all kinds of BS. Exactly. Yeah, Gonsex is saying, it seems like trying to change your opponent's mind is the main reason we have so many problems in conversation these days. If your only goal is to change your opponent's mind, you're either going to get nowhere or resort to less than civil means to do so. Hence, why you see so many crazies must have you agree with them. Otherwise, you're a danger or a problem. Absolutely. Absolutely. M69 said, I'm old enough to recall when feminism was all about breaking the stereotypes. Now they're all about the stereotype. It's gone full. It's done a complete 180. A complete 180.
The social pressure, but that doesn't necessarily make you neither a man or a woman if you don't live up to.
So your first point, and I want to make sure I understand this, your first point is that the definition should be rooted in biology. Is that correct?
I think first and foremost, yes.
Okay.
So that's our first claim from the biologist, that these words should have a basis in biology.
And then your secondary point is that it's regressive, the definition.
Yes, I believe
Is
so.
that correct? Okay.
I believe non-biological versions, definitions are inherently...
So wait a minute. Hold on. Dr. Evil Genius. First of all, I just realized this. You're first you're saying like, oh, he's just making shit up. But then you're making his exact point. So it seems like you do agree. Maybe it's just the notion of an ethical definition versus this definition versus that definition. Maybe that's silly, but you do seem to agree with the guy.
Regressive.
Okay.
Versions, definitions are inherently regressive.
Okay, so let's give him an opportunity to respond to that. So
yeah, sure.
The idea that the definition of man should be rooted in biology, what is your response to Colin?
I'd like to get a bit of clarity, if that's okay, Colin. Sure. What do you mean by rooted in biology?
So that's an interesting question. What do you mean by rooted in biology? I would assume that means that the biological realities that we can observe, measure, all that kind of stuff is relevant to how we discuss the biology. Specifically to take the best interpretation of the question. If we're talking about gender, then the only way that it makes sense or has any reason to exist is to describe biology. So it has to be rooted in biology. That's my interpretation.
Clarity, if that's okay, Colin. Sure. What do you mean by rooted in biology?
It's rooted in the fact that a man must at least be biologically male.
Okay, so it sounds like that criticism is that my view is not your view. Is that... Because
my view is not your view, and I believe the way you've constructed your view is socially regressive.
So that objection, please correct me if I'm mistaken, that doesn't seem to actually give me a reason to doubt my definition. It's merely an expression of I disagree with you, and the way that you'd back that up is if we start talking about specific cases, and that's when you'll be able to build up the fact that it is rooted in biology, and thus there's a problem with my definition. Would that be fair? On its own, it's not doing much.
See, but again, just let the conversation play out. Stop trying to guess what he's going to say and cut it off before he says it, and just let him say it, and then be like, no, you're wrong because X, Y, Z. Hey, look who we got in the house! Seabass! Welcome back. It's been so long. Welcome to the party. Virgil, you got another troll to contend with. Welcome. We also got Dietrich. Welcome. Said, most of the people who believe in this crap aren't very smart. So why make it harder on yourself by having to count to more than 2? Seems like they're oppressing themselves in more ways than necessary. I definitely agree. Hey, look who we got. The one, the only, Dr. Peter Boghossian, who I definitely used on the thumbnail to get more people in, more of a moderator, but amazing guy. I dropped the link if you would like to come up. But thank you for this awesome conversation. Shout out to Reed for doing the chart. That is brilliant. Love it.
Requires something to feed into it, because I'm not seeing a criticism per se there.
Well, my criticism, I think it's regressive that if we're defining what a man and a woman is according to stereotypes of masculinity and femininity.
But isn't that a second objection?
Hey, we got Daniel Cabrera in the building. Welcome to the party, our local thespian. Good to see ya.
Criticism, I think it's regressive that if we're defining what a man and a woman is according to stereotypes of masculinity and femininity.
Hey, there's Reed. Yeah, man. And you were quick with it. I just did a stream with a friend, and we were going through a Biden speech and trying to, get all like, oh, how many times did you say this? And that was difficult. And obviously it was just us, but I love it. Shout out to Reed. Nice wonder.
What a man and a woman is according to stereotypes of masculinity and femininity.
But isn't that a second objection? So the first objection you have is that it's rooted in biology. The second objection is that it's regressive. And I want to get to the regressive.
Yes,
that's amazing.
I think it's a more useful definition to root it in biology.
Okay, but isn't that you just saying, I don't like your view? That's not your second one with regressive is a criticism of my view, and we'll unpack it. But
yeah, exactly. So Gonta, that's it. Yeah. Viking Steve over here, he's trying to get ahead of the conversation. If what they say, or if what Colin says is not to your liking, or Peter Boghossian is doing a great job of saying, okay, do you agree with that? Do you have any disagreements? It just shows when you're trying to get ahead of the conversation, you're trying to win instead of having the conversation. Stop trying to win an argument and just have the conversation.
But your first one, I don't see how that's actually an objection to my view.
Yeah, I disagree with your view. I think it differs. It's a radical departure from what we've sort of been organizing societies around in the past for, I think, very good reasons.
Okay. I think we've hit bedrock. Okay. That's great. So would it be fair to say that objection is more along the lines of your view is a massive divergence compared to what we've used in the past?
Yes, and also I think the definition we've used in the past were less regressive.
Okay,
I don't like it just
Real quick, guys, if you have not already seen my interview with Peter Boghossian, please definitely go check that out.
Because it's what we've done before. If I thought your thing was better in some way, then I'd be happy to adopt a new worldview.
Okay.
Okay, so now I want to make sure I understand this. So your criticism is the definition of man should be rooted in biology. Is that correct?
Yes.
See,
Okay.
he's clearing
And
all
the
this up.
reason, why should the definition of man be rooted in biology?
That's the question we want.
Not just man, but man and woman, because I think there are, I think there are certain contexts in society where, we should be taking into consideration the very real and large sex differences between males and females. Specifically, it's more for females and having protected spaces. There was a history where they weren't able to vote, they weren't able to own property.
The original feminism.
And this was based on the fact that they were biologically female, not necessarily just whether they conform to certain stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand this. So your disagreement with that definition
Pulls us back.
deals with primarily the consequences, and secondarily the fact, and maybe if I'm reading this into your view and this is not correct, please correct me immediately, is that if it's rooted in biology, it's not arbitrary, but anything else it would be arbitrary. That
I agree with. Hold on, I want to go back. You said something.
And deals with primarily the consequences.
So the definition that Colin had deals with the consequences, or primarily the consequences of what were happening. What is Steve's argument? Steve's core argument is that my definition has more utility than yours. I don't think that's the case, brother. M169 said, I really like this format, the mapping and understanding of terms. Shout out again to Reed. Glomsek said, I think Peter can just sense when the Indian Jesus is doing a reaction to one of his videos. It's totally not, because I tagged him in the thing at all. It has nothing to do with that. My watch sense is tingling.
Understand this. Deals with primarily the consequences, and secondarily the fact, and maybe if I'm reading this into your view and this is not correct, please correct me immediately, is that if it's rooted in biology, it's not arbitrary, but anything else it would be arbitrary. That's kind of implicit what I heard in that.
If it's not rooted in if it's not rooted in biology, I believe the definition becomes socially regressive, because it then therefore defaults
okay, so
to
it's again the
stereotypes.
consequences.
Yeah. And so like the things that we're talking about, where women are not getting their safe spaces, we make fun of that, but that term, but women do need protected spaces. Even different things that go to with scholarship. I mean, we go down the list all the time. These are real practical applications of these words, or it affects the application of these words. And remember, Steve said that his main thing is that his definition has more utility. So let's see it.
Okay, so it's the consequences.
Again, I'm willing to accept it. If it's a better definition, I'm always willing.
Consequences.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I understand now.
Okay, one more clarifying question. Hopefully just one more.
What as many as you want.
Yeah, thank you. What specifically do you mean?
And here's the thing. I am a huge fan of him. I think he does great work. I was just watching one of his videos right before we came on. But at the end of the day, we got to call it like we see it.
Hopefully just one more.
What as many as you want.
Yeah, thank you. What specifically do you mean by biology?
The state of being either male or female.
Okay, so it's not to do with phenotype.
Not to do
it's
with
to do. It's actually to do with all chromosomes. It's to do with.
Okay.
Going back to the definitions that you gave, it's to do with having the physiological apparatus to produce, in this case, small gametes, even if they don't work.
Right.
Yes.
I thought he was going to try to, get really, well, what do you mean? Or what's the definition of is? I thought he was going down that way, but all right.
I could maybe,
cool.
Add one more little nuance, if you'd like, in that while I think that our laws should be as closely matched onto biological reality as possible, there could be some wiggle room for sort of legal definitions of male or female, some degree of legal fiction in very rare instances, maybe for certain intersex conditions, where, for all societal,
I was like, you talking about Blair White, or what are we talking about here?
Intents and purposes, these individuals should maybe be legally considered a sex that they are not.
That's an interesting way to put it.
So we can,
because they're intersex.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, they're intersex. They are not male. They are not female. They have a combination of the definitions that both men here have given. They don't fall into either category. But yet again, as we say so often on this channel, the exception does not break the rule, but instead makes the rule. You cannot have an exception to a rule without that rule having any bearing in reality. So the soul said, I think it must be rooted in biology for explicitly defining male and female. The rest of it can be argued socially and constructively, etc. And yeah, the legalese exception for intersex makes sense too. Yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree.
Well, okay, let's start with this. So the objection itself is that it should be rooted in biology. So allow me to unpack my definition. So I have a view of what I want gender to be, and then I have a view of what it is, right? And so my definition here accounts for that.
What?
So by my lights, I actually don't think that gender is a very useful thing. And I think as we've moved on and as we've realized we don't want to assign certain aesthetics or behaviors or expectations onto people, we're actually heading towards gender abolitionism, which is something that I would endorse. I think that's fine.
Gender abolitionism?
Oh, hell no.
What? What does that even mean? I don't even think I want to know. Like, I'm tempted to Google it, but like, gender. What are I always do that? Gender abolition. Gender abolition. Yep, that's how you spell it. From the Oxford Academy. Where are we? This chapter, abolition of gender. There's a powerful set of assumptions in Western culture that influences how many of us think about sex and gender, even if we're not always fully aware of it. More things that we didn't know that we didn't know. This set of assumptions can be called the dominant gender ideology. Some people think it would be better if sex was not linked to socially enforced gender roles that prescribe how people should be and behave on the basis of their sex. And their proposal for how long, yeah. So just, the final boss in getting rid of anything that allows us to be different. Dr. Boghossian said, gender abolition, ladies heading for the sewers and the oil rigs. Never gonna happen. It does not matter what the definition of gender is or if there is no gender. You will not find females on the fucking oil rigs. It's not gonna happen. And that's the if it was, then I'd be a little bit more amenable to, what's the utility of this? And but we've already covered it in the we talk a lot about the the color blindness of the 90s and how, that wasn't necessarily the peak of race relations, and that there was more to be done, but that was the peak before we started heading in the wrong direction. And I think this is exactly the same thing. Before this really came about, we knew it was good. And we were starting to gain the sensitivities to people who were intersex, people who did have gender dysphoria, stuff like that. We were moving in that direction. But then you tried to trans the kids and fucked it all up.
However, that's not the way it is in the world, and including the Anglosphere, right? So when we look at what my definition's saying there, it's saying that a man is someone who lives up to a social construct that is typically associated with phenotype. Phenotype has almost all of the biological concern that you have. The vast majority.
Well, okay, so to Steelman his position, from what I understand, is that it's not that we would all be considered the same thing. It's just that we wouldn't use gender at all. It would just be based on biological sex. And so there'd be the female room and the female bathroom and the male bathroom. Or, I mean, I guess they would just have individual, but like the teams then. So then you'd be female in sports. It would be female teams versus, or not versus male teams, but female teams and male teams. Yeah. I mean, am I wrong? Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Phenotype. Phenotype has almost all of the biological concern that you have. The vast majority of people that are men are also males. That's contained in my definition. It's something to be expected. The reason I use phenotype instead of, say, biology or physiological apparatus, such as the in this case it would be testicles, is because I do not think that's actually how we've had gender roles assigned and behaved throughout history.
So real quick, let's just get a full definition of phenotype.
Phenotype.
The set of observable characteristics on an individual resulting from the interaction of its genotype with the environment, and genotype being the genetic constitution of an individual organism. So the genotypes is the genetic makeup, and the phenotype is how that represents itself. Just in case we didn't know. Everybody, why do y'all just want to be retards? You're good. I'll call y'all retards. Welcome, retards, to the party. Dietrich said rats find their way into something even if it makes them look foolish, trying to squeeze through the smallest hole. The intersex argument is the hole to bring the plague of non-binary cult ideology. Holy shit! Holy shit! Dilly to that. Sorry, Guamtech. I think we got a new comment of the night. Comment of the night. Completely agree. This is the tactic, and they just need a vehicle for this to make sense. And if you think it ends here, it does not, because it ends with effing children. So they just need a vehicle to make it okay. I don't even want to say it. That's what they want to do. That's what this is all about. And I'm not saying Viking Steve is all about that. I understand that that's not what everybody who is not, anti-woke. I understand that, or everybody that's woke. I understand that's not what they are. But the people who are pushing this stuff, that is what they want. Dr. Genius said, dude is trying to bend shit. My word includes your word. If it did, the words would be the same. Well, again, to be fair, I think what he's saying is that if you're saying a male, if you're saying a man has to be a male, then when I talk about men, then that includes, or when I talk about males, that includes men, I think. But again, yeah, exactly. That's where we're at. That's how granular we have to get with this shit, because these people can't just deal with reality. You might, David, or Daniel, sorry. You might. Well,
I mean, put it this way, we didn't know about gametes until I think it was about 1700s. We didn't know about chromosomes until the beginning of the 20th century. And so what was happening back with St. Aquinas, what was happening back with Aristotle, they were making judgments based on typically genitalia, but as you know, some of them are ambiguous, which is why they get some of it wrong. But the biggest one was phenotype, is secondary sexual characteristics that they were making the assumption on.
So again, in terms of what that would be, that would be like long hair, wide hips, having titties, having a dick, that kind of shit.
So I think that my definition is actually the one that people have been using throughout history. It's because we didn't have...
Is it though? Nah, bro, it's not.
Access to the information to actually base it on.
Okay, pause on that. So
Danny Barr says, correct me if I'm wrong, hasn't their current prime minister been caught in blackface at least 5 times? I didn't even see the other, I guess it was this one. I didn't see this one, and I already knew who you were talking about. Shout out to Leslie McDowell in the building. Welcome to the party. So there are 6 primary sexes: X, XX, XYY, XY, XXY, and XXXY. These 6 either pass as a subset of male, female, or other. So what you're saying is that gender is bimodal, in the sense that you're either in the male category or in the female category, unless you're an exception. The exception makes the rule. Dr. Winchester, in my opinion, is the same when people didn't know shit. Great way to debate. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, people didn't know shit. They think exactly what I think. I don't think that's quite the argument that you think it is.
I want to look at that claim, and Stephen, I want to make sure I got this right. Colin, you said before that the definition that this is an ahistorical definition. Stephen,
Hey, shout out to Amanda Kemp over on Facebook. Thank you so much for the like. Virgil, I assume that was you. Hit that shit up.
correct me if I'm wrong, and you're saying it's not an ahistorical definition.
Yes, I'm saying.
Is that correct?
I think that's fair. Yeah, I'll correct if.
Okay, so I want to give Colin an opportunity to respond to that.
So, I mean, it is correct that we've used proxies for sex in the past because, you know, we're not looking at people, you know, we're not doing tissue samples to see if they have testes or ovaries. But the overwhelmingly vast majority of people, you can use certain proxies for their sex by observing their genitals. And it's almost always, you know, a good indicator if they're male or female.
Again, like we were just listening. If you have a beard, if you have long hair, you know, I have both, but you can pretty clearly see that I am a man. And, you know, honestly, if you saw me from, you know, from behind and you thought I was a woman, I don't think I'd be that offended. Like, I'm not jacked or anything. I wouldn't want to be that woman, but
it's still the case that, you know, women were discriminated against based on their biology, based on their reproductive, you know, whether or not someone believed they were biologically male or female, even if we didn't know, you know, in the past about the existence of, you know, the fundamental property of what males and females were. One more additional thing to this too is, even if we can say that some people might be wrong in very rare edge cases of diagnosing somebody's sex, this idea that we shouldn't use sort of biology at all blows open the doors to saying that, well, we can just call people who have no complications or DSDs or whatever, you know, we might as well call them males or females or man or woman, and it's completely arbitrary.
does anyone know what a DSD is? I don't even know what that is and don't really care to look through it. But yeah, and that's going back to what Dr. Evil Genius was saying, is that if these words don't have any meanings, then why are we using them? And these are, you know, again, rooted in biology, and men and women are different. So I'm not hearing anything that is even coming close to saying that there's anything wrong with what Colin here is saying. You know, so that's how you end up with a dead kid and yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, pause for that. So I just want to go with the first thing that he said was the historical. So you said that they were proxies for something else, right? Proxies for sex. And we didn't have the technology, although he didn't use the word technology for that. Is that fair to say?
Oh, it sounds like Colin has an essentialist view of language.
Again, trying to point out, why don't you let him tell you, hey, I have an essentialist view of language, instead of trying to, you know, put it out there and be like, well, it sounds like I know everything. I don't like this. I don't like this. And this is way more relevant when we talk about the intersection of atheism and politics, or I guess we say religion and politics. This is where I just cannot associate with any type of atheist community, because it's so infiltrated with this this ideology. And the fact that they are atheists, they assume that they can't be caught into another dogma. And this ain't it, brother. This ain't it. You're good, dude. I just thought you were talking about something a lot darker.
That he thinks that we were referring to something that actually is the case, like somehow, like there is necessary and sufficient conditions for the gender, and what was happening is people were just getting it wrong. Is that fair, Colin?
I'm not.
Interesting here from Dietrich. Said soda and pop are still fizzy sugar. How are sex and gender any different? The right Twix and the left Twix are the same thing. Why are sex and gender any different? Oh, they aren't? Got it. You do got it.
Not sure I understood that criticism.
So it's more understanding the view that I think you're espousing, and that is that you have an essentialist view of what was going on. So
this is similar to when Matt Walsh in What is a Woman was interviewing that blonde dude professor. And it's like, it sounds like you're looking for an essentialist, or this, I'm just using that word. Matt's like, no, I'm just looking for any definition of the word woman.
I think you're espousing, and that is that you have an essentialist view of what was going on. So my light would say, how I understand it, is someone would just make an assumption, assign gender, if you will, based on a combination of genitalia and secondary sexual characteristics. And that's what gender was throughout all of human history. And I think it still is this.
Wait, but you just said your definition is how people have used it through time immemorial. Did you not just say that 5 minutes ago? Talking out of both sides of your mouth. First, you're saying you have more utility. Now we're talking about the utility of the very biological definition. Now you're talking about, oh, all throughout human history is your view, but now we know better. But the thing that I'm saying is always what we've been saying.
What?
No, not existentialist. Essentialist, like the essence.
Actually, the newer discoveries we've had are not the right place to be. Whereas it sounds like what your view is that actually they were wrong to assign that gender to that person, because that really what gender is at bedrock is the same thing, it seems, as sex.
Yes.
It has to have that biological component. So actually they were just wrong about it, because all along they were basing their roles not on the secondary sexual characteristics, not on the phenotype, not on the aesthetics, not on the behaviors. They were actually basing it on whether or not they had those ovaries or testicles inside them, despite all other factors.
So we have here on the chart that, so this definition is the historical definition from Stephen, and I guess disagreements that there's a proxy definition for sex. And people were, in the past, were using that wrong. Let's just see what it is.
Well, I would say they were basing it on their perceived sex.
Melissa said, so this is important. 7 million years ago, females had just as much upper body strength as men, but when we started walking upright, evolution made women's udders move to chests so it wouldn't constrict running. It's my opinion that men have done a horrible job of protecting women. You here, ain't you? Are you alive? You're fucking welcome.
Inside them, despite all other factors.
Well, I would say they were basing it on their perceived sex. They could be wrong to some degree. I mean, mistakes happen, even though by using that proxy, they're almost always going to be correct.
Oh, Dr. Evil, you mean like the queers for Palestine would have a great time over in Palestine? Methinks I see a thread that connects them.
Save for just a very few like edge cases where they might be confused.
Okay, so now I'm unclear. So has that been historical? How has the term historically been used?
Yeah. So this, I'm actually, now that you say this, am I misunderstanding that Steve is saying that before we had the science of biology, that we treated biology in terms of I don't know what he's trying to say. Because, like, we're talking about the time period in which he thinks his opinion agrees with, but it's never been that sex and gender were different. So I'm not sure what part of the history he's talking about. Maybe pre-biology, but I don't know where that's going.
We could do it this way, right?
So
you don't know my chromosomes, you don't know, you haven't seen my genitalia, anything like that, right?
Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm glad as well, man. That would leave you in horror. However, when you meet me, how do you assess my gender?
You got a beard and you're wearing men's clothes. So I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you're a man. That's the way that we used to do things all throughout history.
I don't know. You keep using the word gender, and I promise you I'll get to that.
Well, that addresses literally your question, right? So the question is, how do you assess that? Like,
well, I'll let Colin answer.
I don't think that was the question. I think that's the question. I think that's the question that he wants to answer. But again, that's not what we're talking about. How do you you need to make a line from this conversation or this use of the definition of is historical or regressive or this, that, or the other. And well, how would you guess my gender? That's like we'll get there. We'll get there. As he said, when you say we, you mean the scientific community. Depends on the context. I don't remember. What did I say? I might be talking about just anti-trans people or anti-woke people. Sorry, I don't remember this story. Dr. Virginia said the shape of his jaw and the width of his shoulders are a dead giveaway. Yep. It said, remember, communities choose labels and categories. Shout out to D-Sab. I'm going to call you D-Sab over on Twitch. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. It said, historically, people that thought they were different than they appeared were crazy. My, how times have changed. Indeed, they have. Indeed, indeed.
Answer that question.
How do you assess that? Like,
Well, I'll
what do
let
you do?
Colin answer that question.
Again, we have disagreements on like how we view gender. I would say I would look at you and I would assume that you're male because you have male secondary sexual characteristics. You have facial hair and all this stuff. I can't know 100%, but I can know pretty much. You know, I can be maximally certain of your sex based on these proxies.
Yeah.
And you could be wrong. You could be wrong. But guess what has not been a real problem for humanity in the history of humanity? Thinking that people were the wrong sex. That's not a thing that is affecting human nature. If it happens, yeah, it sucks. I'm sure, you know, especially if you're a trans person trying to get misgendered, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure that sucks. But we had millions of years. Let's not say millions. When did language start? 35,000, 350,000, whatever. Whenever language started until fucking 2015, man and male were interchangeable. Female and woman were interchangeable. What is your argument?
Much, you know, I can be maximally certain of your sex based on these proxies.
Yes.
It's man!
So it seems, allow me to introduce an analogy, if you will.
Gotcha, Andy. So we did not evolve from gorillas or chimpanzees. We evolved from lemur type things, apes, right? They're not, I don't know. I mean, I don't know the specific things. Oh, I thought we were going the other direction. Oh, that was scary. I thought we were going the other direction, brother.
So it seems, allow me to introduce an analogy, if you will, which I think we'll get at where our disagreement is here. Suppose that you had a culture, and what this culture did is it decided, or it thought, that its money was made of 2 alloys, or say 3 alloys, let's say, 3 alloys. And what happens is they've been spending this money, buying property, buying slaves back then, doing whatever they do with their money, right? And then what happens later is we learn with a bit of science, the way that they understood the alloys is false. Actually, 2 of those are the same one. So what we've now learned is that they had a 2 alloy coin, not a 3 alloy coin, or something along this proximity, right? The question is, does that invalidate all of the purchases that happened? Or were they right? Or is money a social construct?
Only the people who agree with Steve have not liked the video.
Because it's a social construct, it really is ingrained in them, not in the external thing that they think that they're referring to.
Okay, and that analogy extends to the definition of man, or the fact that man should be rooted in biology. How?
The way that extends is likewise, just as they were spending this money thinking it was one way, you could say that in the past that they were assigning sex and gender based on what we now understand to be the ovaries, the gamete type, etc.
Okay.
So what he's saying is that if we place value in a coin that has 3 metals and a coin that has 1 metal, then we're making a distinction. We can be wrong about that distinction. That still doesn't change the fact that the coin that we thought had 3 metals that only has 2, we were just wrong about thinking that it had 3 metals. It always only ever had 2 metals. So we were just wrong. Humans being wrong about the world does not change biology. That's what he's trying to say, is that, well, you know, you thought you were giving it value and operationally you were using this coin as if it was made with 3 different types of metals. But in fact, you were wrong and it was only 2 different types of metals. And so now, how do we know? Like, if that were really the case, then we'd say, oh, okay, well, now there's two metals here, and we'll assign this value just like any other arbitrary thing. But sex, which is the bottom line here, is not arbitrary, and not because of the fact that it is tied to biology. Neither is gender. So the question is, why does behavior set one's gender? That's a good question. Yeah. Jana said the social construct is girls wearing dresses and high heels and boys wearing fucking pants, you sad person. Yeah. Let's see. Unfortunately, this is true. We need to better that stuff. I'm not saying. I don't know what time. I think I answered your question. 50,000 years ago, societies began to pigeonhole women into elders and men into hunters. And this is what caused the issue. It's being pigeonholed by birth type. What question? What question was that? Sorry. Again, I got a million things going on. But I mean, this makes sense to me. And this is why the push to move away from this instinctual organic nature is why people are so unhappy. Instead of going to the place where, going back to the 90s, we were saying that, with race, it's okay if you're black and you don't like rap music, or if you're white and you do like rap music. It's okay if you're a girl and you want to play with trucks or whatever, and this, and if you're a boy and you want to play with dolls and wear dresses, that's totally cool. Now, was it completely accepted? No, but that was the overarching, that was in the zeitgeist, that we were moving in that direction. And that solves all of these issues. That, yes, I'm a man and I happen, and I just, shout out to Desmond, whatever his name is. I just did a, actually, let's play that. Let's play that right quick. Right quick.
After
this was the level of trans and kids, there would be no issue.
I'm a non-binary, bisexual, learning specialist and teacher. These are the conversations that you're very afraid of. Are you a boy or a girl? I was born a boy. Good question. Back to math, though.
Easy. Wow, look at that. Look how easy that was. Sorry.
I'll shut up. Why do you wear makeup? I like the way it makes me look. Pretty simple. Same reason why other people wear it. Are you married? Do you have a girlfriend? I can't answer that. That's personal information. It doesn't have to do with school. Your makeup is pretty. Am I allowed to wear makeup? Thanks for saying it's pretty. I'm not allowed to give you makeup at school. That's up to you and your parents. Why does your makeup make you so, tan? I'm actually black. I'm Italian and Nigerian. Good question. Do I call you Mr. or Miss? You can just call me Desmond, but in the end, I can't control what you call me.
Based Desmond.
All jokes and reindeer antlers aside, the conversations that you're so worried about are very, very easy and very, very fast.
Very, very easy and very, very fast. It's not complicated unless you try to make it complicated for some nefarious reason. Teacher said, so he admits the only way men are women is because they were crafted to be that way. Sounds like grooming. I don't know if that's his point, but we'll definitely have to look closer at that point. Daniel says, actually, I have. They breathe? Really? Well, fucking kilts are. Yeah. Fucking kilts are amazing too. I'm an actor, bro. I do makeup. I do dresses. I do two tops. I do heels. He'll do it all. There you go. And that doesn't make him a woman. That doesn't even make him less masculine. But to them, nope, you're a woman now. You're a woman now. Comlink said he's also forgetting that we make coins with whatever we want. We don't make up our biology. Bingo. That is the issue with his analogy. It just does not map. It does not map. Dr. Boghossian, could that be trying to move women could be that trying to move women into hunter roles led to empty stomachs when compared to the results of men doing the hunting. Makes sense to me. Makes sense to me. All right, let's dive back in here.
What we now understand to be the ovaries, the gamete type, etc.
Okay, I'm going to give Colin an opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure on the relevance of that because, even though we're not, again, looking at whether someone has testicular tissue, males and females are still real categories. And, we currently have sort of our laws in society.
So wait, Leslie, are you saying we shouldn't be pigeonholing by birth type? Is that where you're leading with this? Because I'm okay with the fact that, criticism happens. Like social shaming, this idea of it wasn't trans. It was just like, you're not a real man. I think that's appropriate. Now, not in the same way that it would have been in the hunter-gatherer tribes, but if you're simping on whatever this, that, the other thing, I'm totally fine and say, you're not a real man. Man the fuck up. So it's not, there was an idea that you weren't considered a man, but it wasn't anything close to what we consider trans. Dr. Boghossian said, back then, it wasn't about what people wanted to do. It was about survival. Bingo. What people needed to do. Exactly.
There's someone who has testicular tissue. Males and females are still real categories. And, we currently have sort of our laws in society set up to account for the real biological differences that come with being male or female.
And that's why it's different with the coins.
And so to subvert that, to flip it on its head, it has many, bad consequences for society. Like most women, or women are biologically female. That's an important distinction. They deserve to have certain spaces that, protect the fact that, they're going to be less strong on average, that they're more susceptible to sexual violence, that type of thing. So there are just pragmatic reasons for why we would want to, acknowledge the reality of sex.
Hold on. So I just want to make sure that I understand this. So you just said, and if I got this wrong, I apologize. Correct me if I'm wrong. You just said that male and female are real categories.
Yes.
A man, is that male and female or man and woman?
Both. So let's go, grab these real quick. So Zippy's saying pigeonholing equals life role equals caste system. Nothing to do with gender, but forced roles. So I would say exactly what Daniel's saying here is that, well, that's not happening here. That's not anything about American life. Yes, there are gender roles, there are social norms, but those are good. And having social norms and having the taboo and shame of going outside of social norms is a very useful, has a lot of utility, to use Stephen's word. And so yeah, exactly. Shout out to Dr. Evo Genius. I think we got our new comment of the night. There's no problem with pigeonholing yourselves in certain ways. You brought up the oil rigs before. It's okay. We're allowed to be different. They said there will always be a disparity because most ladies don't want to go fucking lay bricks, pump sewage, build buildings, lay pavement, all that stuff. Need to go. Yeah, no need to go on. Exactly. So said, I'm sure there have always been men and women who wanted to do the opposite gender's role. It sounds more realistic to me that because women give birth, they were literally needing to be present to feed the children. They would stay home and cook or maybe gather rather than hunting. Yep. Leslie said to Dr. Evil Genius, for 7 million years, all 6 sexes had to learn to hunt to survive. 50% of the pack not hunting or gathering is inefficient. 50,000 years ago, agriculture changed everything for hunters. So I don't know enough to get into this. And it's definitely true that it's not like women just sat around and were like the Real Housewives of whatever. But I don't know how much this is accurate. But I definitely don't know. Seabass says, America, life is opening your door and compassion to the immigrants and letting them stay in your spare bedroom. Hey, I actually agree with that. Yeah. Fuck that shit. All right, let's dive back in here.
A man, is that male and female or man and woman?
Well, I think man and woman are real categories because I think men and women, it is something to be an adult human, male or female.
Okay, so I want to take that claim and ask Stephen to respond to that, please.
So being pigeonholed at birth is the core to the issue of gender abolition. I'm for personal freedom, but not everyone not allowed to be gender roles. I don't know what this means. We are in a state where the country has equal laws across the board. So there's nothing about your gender that prevents you from doing anything legally in this country. It might physically, but guess what? I'm short as fuck. So as much as I might want to be in the NBA, that ain't gonna happen. So I'm not really sure what you're getting at. I agree with the fact that if, like Zippy was talking about the caste system and you're forced into a role your whole life. But as Daniel said, that's not how it works here. So even if that concept is true, it's irrelevant to us because we don't live that way.
The problem I see here is that because you're criticizing my view, you have to assume my premises. And under my view, sex and gender are not the same thing. So any concerns about we need spaces for females versus males, and we need to assess people based on their whether or not they're female rather than male, I don't lose that with my definition because I keep sex as the category for that. It's a very important category. It's something that we need to take seriously. So say that you go to the doctors and you have problems with your lungs and you're a trans woman. If you transitioned after viralization, after you experience male puberty, then actually it's really important for your doctor to know this. And
shout out to Horror Stream over on Rumble. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party. Said men are better than women, says Horror Stream, at everything and always will be. Islam is right about women.
Haram!
I'm going to respectfully disagree, but welcome, welcome, welcome to the party.
After you experience male puberty, then actually it's really important for your doctor to know this. And so that's why it's important that they have down on their notes that you're male.
All right, we'll run that back a little bit, but Dr. Boghossian has a great point here that we don't have fully equal laws until women are required to enroll in selective service. So in any way that would be relevant to the benefit of women, meaning that there's no laws that are immediately making it harder for women to live. That's not happening. So yes, it's not completely equal, but there's nothing in the laws that makes your life harder as a female. I mean, I'm not getting to the race shit, but it's certainly not for Americans anymore. Daniel said, this is an equality until men can either opt out of child support, or get a word in abortion. There you go. There you go. So it definitely moves in the other direction. There's ways that the law hurts men, but definitely not women. Definitely not women.
If you transitioned after viralization, after you experience male puberty, then actually it's really important for your doctor to know this. And so that's why it's important that they have down on their notes that you're male, which in this sense would correlate with the definition that I gave.
So it is a real
or the definition that Colin gave.
Category.
Yeah, my view is that sex is a real category.
Okay.
But gender is a separate thing.
Okay, so get into that. What is so we have all the things on the chart about what the definitions are. What is the difference? What is the difference? We're almost halfway through, and he hasn't given what the difference is.
Okay, so you're agreeing. That's a point of agreement that you have
because
with Colin, that it's a real category.
I do agree with him, but what that means is that in this dialectical context, Colin's concerns do not have any issue. They shouldn't even be raised because my view accounts for this. So these concerns that Colin's raised, and this is something I've heard from yourself, Colin, a few times, your concerns for making sure we keep female spaces and that we retain a meaningful distinction with sex is something that I'm not at all criticizing.
And so that's bro, if that's not what you're criticizing, then what is it that you think we on this side of the debate have an issue with? If you think it is important for females to have protected spaces, if you realize that based on the laws that we have, it's very important that we have a clear distinction that woman, and at least legally, woman means female. What's the disconnect? Why one and not the other?
For making sure we keep female spaces and that we retain a meaningful distinction with sex is something that I'm not at all criticizing. What I'm criticizing is that gender isn't the same thing as sex.
Okay, so then how is it different?
I would argue we've known this for a really long time. And when it comes to what gender is, a necessary condition isn't being female. That's what my view is.
Yeah. And
does that make more sense?
Yeah, and
I'm going to give you a chance to respond, and then I want to.
Let's take a look at what we got here. So
we went over Stephen's definition, and I want to give Stephen an opportunity to discuss Colin's definition.
All right, so we have originally here from Stephen saying someone who lives up to a social construct that is typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors is what a man is. So from there, we have, what does this say? Man should be rooted in biology, Colin says. This definition leads to gender abolitionism. The world would be a better place if gender was abolished. So he wants to use that because of what it will do. He wants to get rid of biology. Or excuse me, get rid of gender. And he says it is rooted in history, that it's not the same thing as sex. The definition works the same way as money as a definition, but we've already debunked this part. So yeah, this is, again, Stephen was talking about history, but like the history is on our side, that we've always, just seen two categories. People in the past were wrong to use this definition. So yeah, apparently there was a time, according to both of them, that somebody used the definition of man to be someone who lives up to the social construct that is typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. I don't know when that was, but certainly that's not how it has been for a long, long time, and I don't think there's any reason to go back. Zibby said, could he be arguing that that limiting dress and behavior is a problem, but he's arguing it from one of the moons of Uranus? Maybe. Very possibly. Colin said he wouldn't criticize women's spaces except for when gender is in competition with sex, i.e. trans women being allowed in the dressing rooms and bathrooms. That is an angle that I did not even think about. That is an angle that I did not even think about. I'm starring this, and I want to see how much this comes up, because I think you are spot on. I think you're spot on. That it's not about the principle. It's about the fact that, trans people are not getting what they want. Therefore, we need to change the definitions. We need to do this. We need to do that. I think you hit the nail on the head, brother.
Want to give Stephen an opportunity to discuss Colin's definition.
Yes, that'd be great.
Thank you. So, Colin, do you have any words before?
So my main objection to disentangling whether you're a boy or a girl or a man or a woman from being, male or female, and instead basing whether you're a man or a woman or boy or girl around whether you live up.
Yeah, but he was talking about the specific physical makeup of the coins, how many metals were in there. So you're right in the sense that it's fungible in that way. But if we're valuing it based on how many metals are in it, and we're wrong about how many metals are in it, that doesn't mean that the coin has changed. It just means we were wrong about how many metals were in the coin in the first place.
And instead basing whether you're a man or a woman or boy or girl around whether you live up to certain stereotypes, socially constructed roles and behaviors and mannerisms and aesthetics that are associated with being your sex. That is a regressive notion in my view, because this means that if you are not a feminine female, you are no longer a woman. You are instead non-binary, or if you identify with the masculine set of roles. Well,
I disagree with that point, because it would be self-identification. You're not automatically put into a category because of this whole bullshit that you are automatically put into the category of female because of the definition Colin gave. But their whole point, the whole trans movement, is to detach that from actual physical sex.
You are now, instead of you are a man, and this has real implications. So I specifically look at things like gender affirming care and things like that. They will say that if you're the gender that you identify with, so the roles and behaviors and norms and stereotypes, if that differs from what is typically associated with your sex, then
let's chop off your dick.
You have a mismatch between your gender identity and your physical body. And this is causing kids to be confused about this, and adults, that there's something wrong with them. A mismatch means there's something wrong. But then we have this medical apparatus that says, well, this mismatch can be fixed with, giving these sex non-conforming kids.
And so what were we just talking about in the last stream? About how there is in anything. We're at the point in society where so many of the issues that we see are manufactured issues by people who want to sell you a solution. There was never a huge issue with trans people. It was like, if you were a transvestite at the time, was the word that we used. But if you did that, like, hey, whatever, do you? I'm not really trying to associate with it, but, you know, and now, okay, we're getting a little bit more sensitive to that and realizing, oh, you're just a normal person. Maybe you have some mental thing, but you do this, da 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 da. The point of the explosion in numbers that we've seen is creating a false problem and selling the solution to that false problem.
Hormones and surgeries to make their behaviors and stereotypes make their bodies match the behaviors and stereotypes that are, associated with their type of, their internal degree of masculine and femininity. I just think that, you had a women's rights movement that said that women could be masculine, we could be feminine, we can be anything in between. But to say that, well, if you start being masculine and taking on these masculine roles, you're no longer a woman. To me, that is just that's why I think that is a sexist notion, because it gets rid of women's rights. There's no such thing as women's rights in that sense.
So I agree with the second part, but I think it's a straw man, the first part, that's saying, oh, if you look this way, that way, whatever, that you're no longer a woman. And that's not how they use it. But that's exactly the fucking point, that you can be a burly ass female and still be a girl, because that's okay. Being a female, being a girl, being a woman does not dictate how you must live your life. That is the progressive way to look at this. And to Colin's point, it's regressive to say, oh, you look like this, so you behave like this, you are automatically this. And it's not automatic, but people are doing it to themselves in a way that has, I can't get this out of my head. What the fuck? Virgil said, where was it? I missed it. Virgil saying something about it. Oh, Seabass said, how much is your penis worth? Dr. Jim said, it has sentimental value. Seabass got that national treasure dick. Let's go. So the soul said, government is good at finding real problems and creating a false solution using our money to do it.
Bingo.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to give your. Would you like to respond to that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So,
What? Hell no.
So,
I mean, definitely a lot more than women, but definitely not only.
this is the criticism of my view that it leads to social regression. Now, you know how, say, we're talking about atheism and theism. You might see a theist that believes in Christianity, that's what they are, but they don't affirm young earth creationism.
Okay.
One of the dialectical problems I see in this case is that a lot of people assume that because I affirm trans people, I affirm some other view. It's normally a minority view, but it's held by people that get a lot of airtime, because you can make a lot of views by, frankly, taking the piss out of stupid people. I don't have that view, so of course I'm not going to defend it. My view still affirms trans people, but it's not that view. So
what are you saying, bro?
I guess what I would ask, or the way I can clarify it, is that my definition, which is someone who lives up to a social construct that's typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors, the word typical is put in there because they're not necessary and sufficient conditions. I don't think that there are necessary and sufficient conditions to...
Hey, shout out to Captain Gooby. Welcome to the party. Yep, Rationality Rules defending his view to Colin Wright in the presence of our man, Peter Boghossian. Welcome to the party, Captain. Always good to see you.
Necessary and sufficient conditions. I don't think that there are necessary and sufficient conditions to this, just as...
Wait. Are we talking about... I'm assuming that when we say abuse, that we're talking about like abuse, not like spanking abuse. That's what I was going for. So I don't know the numbers either way. So if I'm wrong, then take it with a grain of salt.
Many social constructs work this way as well. Rather, if I had it the way that I wanted it, there's no aesthetics, there's no behaviors, there's not even an association with phenotype. I do not think that gender is a useful thing. I honestly think that our best bet is to get rid of it because of all the wonderful critiques that you've just raised.
But we already did. Your side is the one who started creating all this new stuff about gender. We already were there. Now that I think about it, I'm all for gender abolition because we still have different sexes. So if you're this sex or you're that sex, you do whatever the fuck you want, but it doesn't change your sex. I think all this gender shit, is there a reason to not want to get rid of all the gender shit? Throw it all out. Throw it all out. We're already using man and male as the same thing. So let's just get rid of the word man. Let's just get rid of the word woman. These people are too stupid to fucking understand the difference. They agree with us by... I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. How can you have that position and still say that gender is what you really care about? I mean, like, if you're a trans person or you're in, you're personally experiencing something like that, then that makes sense. But if you're just living your life, then how is this relevant to anything? Why did it need to get here? I don't get it. Dr. Virginia said the rates of SA of kids by women seem to be more on the radar now because of the female teachers slurping on their middle school students. Yep, I didn't think of that. It shows you how far the bias goes, how far the anti-male bias goes. We all have it. Sad.
It doesn't help. However, if you base it on society and the way that society works right now, so it's a descriptive state, not a prescriptive state, it is the case that we base it on phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. And it's a cluster definition of what people fit in order to qualify as being a man and a woman. But because you don't have to do it, I don't see how that's regressive. It's more of a description of what is the case. Most women have long hair, especially when they're young. Most men, they're taller than women. Like, these are perfect.
Okay, so my question would be, what is the practical difference between treating male and man as synonyms versus getting rid of the word man altogether? What is the substantive distance? What is the difference on how people would live their lives if we just got rid of gender altogether? I'm not understanding how that's different than what we already had before all of this bullshit.
Perfectly fine things to say, but because you're using the language such as most and typical, you're not saying that they're necessary conditions.
Okay, so I'm going to give you last word, unless you want the last word, and then I want to keep moving down here.
So I view that as sort of
these days, nothing, because they're all over the place.
A liberal escape hatch to avoid sort of the consequences of what gender ideology actually says. Because
that's it. It's an escape hatch. It's having your cake and eating it too. It's agreeing that all of this gender bender bullshit is nonsense, but also you can have people who their entire identity is their gender. That's what it is. You want to have your cake and eat it too. You want gender to mean nothing, but it be your entire personality, and you want to get rights based on your gender. Maybe not. Maybe that's not what Steven's trying to do. Trying to use his gender to do this or that. Like, they had the women's like job summit something, and a bunch of men were just like, "Oh, I'm non-binary," and went in and got a bunch of jobs. I don't see how you don't want to, if you want to get rid of gender altogether, then there's no such thing as transgender. And that's fine. We just have male and female. If that's the case, how is that different than saying man and male are the same thing, or female and woman are the same thing? I don't see any difference.
Sort of the consequences of what gender ideology actually says, because they always can go back to this, like, well, you don't have to conform to any of these stereotypes to still be a man or a woman. But when you look at the definitions used by, the ones you put forth, typically associated within the expressions and the aesthetics, this is like what WPATH and everything say too, the stereotypes that are associated with your particular culture. I mean, that says something. We tend to know, and even if it's not this definitive, it's a cluster of characteristics, we have in our minds sort of what femininity is. Like, whatever femininity is, it's not Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Okay, whatever masculinity is, it's not just a princess in a gown, balancing books on her head or something like that.
Yeah, I think that if you were to disagree with that statement, then you are in the very, very, very small minority of people who are probably terminally online. And that's probably it. Listen to it again.
You know, it's a cluster of characteristics we have in our minds, sort of what femininity is. Like, whatever femininity is, it's not Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Okay, whatever masculinity is, it's not just a princess in a gown, you know, balancing books on her head or something
I don't know how you could disagree with that. I don't know how you could disagree with that.
like that. You know, there are certain things we can diagnose as being masculine or feminine, and certain things that, you know, would be ridiculous to call those things. And so when we say that the things that are typically associated with, you know, males and females, the social roles, expectations, aesthetics, we have a good idea of what that is. You can't just say like, well, you know, you can actually do anything. It doesn't really matter, because there is this cultural idea of what masculinity and femininity is. To
You can do whatever because it doesn't really matter. You can do whatever because it does not matter. That's where they want to be. That's where they want to be. If you are operating on wanting reality to be how you live your life, the background for how you live your life, then you don't think the same way as these people. And I don't think that chasm is really understood. They live in a different reality. Guys, look how cute he is over there, blending in with the hoodie. Remember, every donation comes with a treat for Morty.
some degree, it's not this completely undiagnosable thing. Yeah, I mean, I guess that would be my criticism. I think it's just pretending to not know what masculine and feminine traits typically are and how they present.
Bingo.
Okay, so I have to
Pretending.
give you an opportunity
And
to
again-
respond to that before we go on.
Sure.
Wait.
Reed, if you'd be so kind.
So remember, again, when Peter Boghossian was on here, what did he say? He said, people, when I ask about the trans thing, what is a woman, anything like that, they don't give the answer that they know. They know the answer. They're just confused because they don't know what they're supposed to say. It's sad. We need to be able to express ourselves and not be treated as lesser than because we have different opinions. Now, if that opinion makes you lesser than, then I'm all for it. But just the notion of disagreeing should not be a moral statement.
Okay, so I have to give you an opportunity to respond to that before we go on.
Sure. Reed, if you'd be so kind, can you go back to my definition?
Can you read it, please?
I can. Someone who lives up to a social construct that is typically associated with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. The criticism that you just conveyed, how is it that my view entails the problems that you see? Did you mind expanding upon that?
Yeah, because if you say the aesthetics, the biology typically associated with being male or female, you know, we do have certain cultural norms that we associate with males and females. With females, we have, you know, being passive, you know, being weak, being agreeable, being all these things that, you know, to some degree maybe have some biological component to them, what creates these stereotypes in the first place. But then to say that, well, the individuals who aren't conforming to these stereotypes aren't actually
part of the group,
you know, a man or a woman, or if they're sort of androgynous and they're expressing themselves, you know, they're just sort of masculine, sort of feminine, maybe both, maybe they change it.
I'm surprised that Steven didn't jump on that, where, oh, if you don't look like this, then you're automatically not a woman anymore. When that's not what they argue. So I'm confused as to why he wouldn't have, just for the sake of the debate, just for the sake of, you know, saving face, jump on something that's like, whoa, that's definitely wrong. But he still hasn't said that. It's crazy. It's like people forgot that tomboys were a thing. How did that happen?
You know, they're just sort of masculine, sort of feminine, maybe both, maybe they change it to the.
And that's okay. You don't have to chop your body up to match that. You can just be you. That's what I thought the whole love is love, gay, I thought that's what it was all about. I thought that's what it was all about. If you can be you, no matter what, then why do you have to chop up your body to fit a category? That don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. And Film says, it seems like Viking Guy would say that when Robin Williams was in Mrs. Doubtfire, that he was actually a woman. Well, again, I think that is that based on what Colin is saying here, that would be true. But I don't think that Viking Guy, I don't think that Stephen would say that. And so that's why I'm confused why he wouldn't jump on that.
You know, they're just sort of masculine, sort of feminine, maybe both. Maybe they change it to they're no longer men and women. This seems to me to be very regressive because you're defining what a man and a woman is according to the stereotypes of a given culture. Therefore, like a woman who cuts her hair short, well, that's not a hairstyle that's typically associated with being, you know, biologically female. This is now a person who is considered transgender or non-binary.
So that's wrong. That's wrong according to the gender ideology. It's that it's not about those things. It's not automatic. It's that you decide. It's a completely arbitrary thing that you decide. It's like a second name. You just pick whatever you want. And between black people and Elon Musk, we've seen that the alphabet can be arranged in a wide array of ways. I just don't understand. I need him to push back on that.
Binary.
So how does my view say that? Because like my view doesn't say that you have to do this. It's just describing what it is in Western civilization, what it is pretty much across the world.
Because we can
I'm
all
not saying that you have to have long hair. I'm not saying you have to behave in a certain way. I'm not even saying that you have to have secondary sexual characteristics. I'm just saying that if you want a definition that broadly captures it all, that's a good one to go for. Like my view isn't telling people what to do. Like all of your concerns, all of your grievances for the way that we've boxed women in, particularly women, and what we've done is we've forced them to have roles, and men as well. We've expected them to be a certain way, not show emotion, etc. These things are not good. This is why, by the way, ultimately, I'm a gender abolitionist. I don't want it. I don't want these expectations put on people. But if we're describing what it is in society, it's like I'm in a room right now, and every male in here has short hair. So it's fair to say that that's part of the aesthetics.
Well,
bro, I think. No,
actually not entirely true.
That's not.
You got long hair. What the fuck are you talking about? Oh, you're a woman now. You're a woman. Oh, gotcha. And that's not what it would be. So twice Colin has brought up this straw man of that you're automatically put in a category. When the entire point of the trans movement is that no, you're not automatically put in a category. You get to choose whatever category you want, and it's completely untethered from what your body is. But he's just said exactly the opposite, and Stephen's not even addressing it. Well, actually, that's not fair. He did say that his definition is not isn't saying that. So let's let it go.
Yeah, we got a lovely bald man in the room, but that's just a description.
Wait, there's a lovely bald man. Never mind.
I'm not saying it should be that way. I'm just trying to it's like when I describe a castle, I'm not telling you that it has to be this way. I'm just giving you a definition of the way that it is. And because I'm not prescribing anything, there's nothing
so that's not your definition of what a man or a woman is then. That's just a definition you think is out there that you don't agree with.
What, this one on that I've just read?
Yeah, that's not your definition.
That is how I see gender. That's that.
Shout out to the dark side of light. Welcome to the party. So I want to stop by and give love because your name caught my eye in a good way. I saw Indian Jesus and that you had Jamaican. That's how people know. That's how people know. I'm like, how does everybody from Twitch know automatically that I'm Jamaican? I must have put something there. There we go. Maybe I'm assuming, but if that's what it is, what you are, would you'd be the first person I've seen with those 3 traits. There we go. There we go. Welcome to the party. Glad to have you. No disrespect at all. Glad to have you here. All right.
On that I've just read.
Yeah, that's not your definition.
That is how I see gender. That is what's going on in society.
So then how would you classify, say, a female who just had all of the behaviors and aesthetics that we typically associate with being a biological male? Just the most masculine person you can imagine.
Yeah, so like if you had someone who had very masculine secondary characteristics,
well, he just gave the example of Dwayne The Rock Johnson. So just go with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Say that somebody is not Dwayne The Rock Johnson, but looks identical to Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Not related. Let's go with that.
Didn't live up to the aesthetics that's typically associated with women, and they didn't have the behaviors
Dwayne the Rock
typically
Johnson.
associated with women. I can account for that, because I'm saying my definition is that they are typically associated with this.
So then that becomes, so if the typically is doing all the heavy lifting of most of what we're talking about when we say trans, because I maybe not most, but certainly a statistically significant portion of the LGBT trans community, you can't just look and tell what their gender is. Partly, I think, because they want it that way. But he's saying because, well, it's just typical that most people aren't trans. That's again the escape hatch. That's having your cake and eating it too. That, well, this doesn't really mean this. It can mean this, but it doesn't really mean this. It's like, come on, bro.
What would you call that person? Is that person a woman?
I'd ask them. I just go, what's your pronouns? Or
Oh yeah, brother. Shout out to the dark side of light. So this is why I love platforms like Twitch and YouTube, because for the most part, you are allowed to give different thoughts and opinions for the most part. Yeah. And yeah, that's exactly what this channel is all about. So like, I am an atheist, but I am very, I'm very into, Christian Enlightenment values, values like that, conservative politics, a bunch of stuff. But so there's a lot of people in my closest group that don't agree with a lot of the core things that I think, but we can all come together because we're interested in truth and having conversations. So welcome to the party. And if someone said, show Viking guy the video of just and say, is it man or woman? And again, they would just say, well, I would have to ask. And clearly, if the guy is saying it's ma'am, then Stephen would say that's a woman. Because it's just typically someone who typically associated with the phenotype. So it could be that they're associated with the phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors, or not. That doesn't mean anything. It's typically water, but this is also water. Water is a liquid. Water is typically a liquid. Does that mean that this is also water? Obviously not. This is mental gymnastics. You are watching the mental gymnastics. And it's insane. Oh my goodness. We got not only Seabass, but Wesley. I don't know what is going on, but we got all our OG trolls back. Welcome to the party. All right, let's dive back.
Is that they are typically associated with this.
What would you call that person? Is that person a woman?
I'd ask them. I just go, what's your pronouns? Or I would make an assumption like yourself. Like if they really presented as masculine, like what you were saying, Peter, I would just call them a dude. And then if they correct me, I'll go, okay, thanks. Like, that's fine.
But under this idea, the words man and woman have literally no meaning whatsoever. I mean, if someone could be literally the most masculine person in the world and be a female, and you would just go ahead and accept the fact that they just describe themselves as a woman, well, then that is just
what is a woman then? Well, anybody who has the phenotype of a woman. You see how useless this terminology is. Remember that language is supposed to be precise in taking the thoughts that are in my head and transferring them over to your head. That's why I all the time, well, recently, been saying God is bad at being a word. When I say God, you have no fucking clue what I'm referring to. You have an idea of what you refer to when you say God. But Christian, atheist, Hindu, or otherwise, when I say God, you have no idea what idea I'm trying to represent. And here we're seeing the same thing. That if these words don't do the process of transferring those ideas into somebody else's head, they are bad at being words. So he's convinced me. Let's get rid of gender altogether. There's males and there's females. End of story. Works for me.
Would just go ahead and accept the fact that they just describe themselves as a woman. Well, then that is just a noise that has no referent in reality. And I don't see how we can even talk about what men and women are unless there's some anchor.
Yeah, because
So that's so. Can you respond to that, Colin?
Yeah. Sure. So the anchor is getting at the description of what it is. So if you look at how Western society does define man and woman according to the way that I look at it, then you're right. You run into that situation. Whereas if you do it by the way that I would prefer, because I've got the prescriptive part, I just wouldn't have gender. I don't think it's very helpful in that situation.
So
okay, so again, so if you would rather not have gender, how is that meaningfully different than merging gender with sex? That is exactly the same thing. Also, how it already has been.
when you describe, when someone tells you that they are a woman,
what does that mean to you?
What does that mean to you? If they say I'm a,
it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. Because in the same way, when I say God, you have no idea what my idea is. Now, we've said that women can mean anything. So if I say I am a man or I am a woman, it doesn't get you anywhere. And so we've destroyed the utility, Stephen's favorite word, the utility of the words man and woman have evaporated. We said God, greater deity, lesser deity, random deity, the universe, wisdom in the sky. God really is a bad word. Yep. Let's get the dark side. Said now I believe that people can feel what they feel, but also need to understand that that no one is going to just accept it, and no one is obligated to care, and no one is entitled to that respect. I said shit, dilly to that. Yeah, absolutely. I was saying earlier, I think it's a good thing that society has evolved to a place where there's people who are different and we have sensitivities towards them. The problem is that these people are abusing those sensitivities and acting like they are entitled to all of this shit. Any film said, I love how the same people that say gender is a spectrum want to say that Tiger Woods and Obama are black men when they are 50%, when they're 50% not. That's a whole rabbit hole, but you ain't wrong. Yep, Daniel knows.
Are a woman. When someone tells you that they are a woman, what does that mean to you? If they say I'm a
God, let us make man in our image. Progressives and monotheists be like, oh, okay, we did that. What now? Beautiful. I love it. All right, one more time. Let's try again.
Are a woman. What does that mean to you? If they say I'm a cis woman, what does that mean to you?
What?
Well, cis is going to be like.
We did not put that on the board, just to be fair.
No. But like.
So yeah, I would have stuck with when somebody says they're a woman. What does that mean to you? Because if you're saying you're a cis woman, in that world, that means that you are a female. So I would stick with what does the person, when somebody says I am a woman, what do they mean?
It's a fair question, right? So a cis woman is a newer word that's I think it was from the 70s. It's being used to describe people who are not trans, right? So you know how we've got heterosexual and homosexual, and we invented those words? It's the same thing, right? We've invented new terminology to be able to make up a way to be able to talk about these things. So that's the cis part covered. But if someone came up to me and they said that they're a woman, I would assume that they're using a definition that's like the self-ID view, which is saying that there's no necessary conditions and there's not even any really descriptions at all. The self-ID view is going,
and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything.
To want to tell you that the only thing that pertains to gender is how one identifies. And they can't even give you attributes outside of themselves, because the second they do that, they're starting to say that it's, associated with things and whatnot.
Because it is. Zibby said, pretty much actions and behaviors within the bounds of either gender should be the focus. Yet they want to redefine and toy with words. It's insanity.
Bingo.
Yep. Oh, Virgil, they already got you. It's already recorded, and they are coming after you. Dark Side of Light said, so if I go and fill out a medical form and it asks what race, and the only option is Caucasian, can I call outrage because I'm Irish and Welsh, but I do identify as Caucasian? Doesn't that matter in their eyes? Because race and gender fall into the same categories. Well, they should if they were being consistent, but because they have no principles, because they have no principles. It's just about, well, I want this to be this way, so this is how this will work. Even if it makes sense for it to work with race as well, I don't want to do that way. It's that simple. It's that simple. I want it the way that I want it, even if it doesn't make sense for anybody else. That's it. That's it.
Side of themselves, because the second they do that, they're starting to say that it's, you know, associated with things and whatnot. That's one of the reasons I don't buy the self-identification view.
So I have a question.
Christ breaks a sword. The Bible said the last trump. Let's go.
Go ahead.
So
No, you
this
go,
isn't
bro.
your definition then of male, of man and woman. This is a definition that's out there that you want to abolish.
Yeah.
No, because
Yes. You said you're a gender abolitionist. We looked that up, and we know what gender is, and we know what abolition is. And you explicitly stated that you want to get rid of gender. So the answer to that question is yes, not no. One said, I heard recently that called mixed race kids black actually stems from a racist definition of whiteness. A single drop of another race, a race's blood, makes it that you aren't white and should be shunned. I'm down with that. Pure blood, let's go. JK, that was a joke. Rachel knows all that, nothing wrong. Dark Side said, so in your ideal world, how would you handle this issue? Like you could make it a global rule. Well, I didn't have a good answer to that question, but I think gender abolition is the way. That makes that if we don't have man and woman and non-binary and Z self and Zer self, then it's just man and woman. I'm totally down with that. Just get rid of the words that are confusing people. Stick to male and female. And like, is there a part of this gender abolition that I'm not getting? Because it really does sound like from both sides, it does solve every issue. Yeah. Because I already see gender and sex as the same thing. When you say man, I already think male. So if you just take away the word man, and we're only using male, aside from the actual using the word man, that doesn't change anything. Now there's no such thing as a woman's space. So a trans woman could go in there. There's only female spaces and male spaces. Are you male? Or are you female? There's no such thing as the women's sports team and the men's sports team. There's the male and the female. If that's what he's proposing, the way we've been doing it makes the most sense. But if they can't handle that, which clearly they can't, I guess the only way is to get rid of gender altogether, because all that it means is the which side of the sexual binary are you? Because again, yeah, the rest of it, anything outside of that, what you're really talking about is your personality. That's it. People who need dragon self, you're not a different gender. You're just a fucking weird person who likes dragons, and that's okay. But we don't have to reorient society around the idea that you like dragons. To be said for me, biology, i.e. female or male for laws, however, you can dress or act as either gender as long as you're not acting outside either. I don't really know what that would mean, but yeah, sounds good to me. Dr. Boghossian says, Guantek is correct on the one drop rule. Slave masters love to clap them slave cheeks. The children produced were still inferior and still slaves. Treated slightly better than the other slaves, though. That's a come up, right? That's a come up. Joke. Dark Side, see, being a bisexual, this issue puts me in a hard situation because I like both, but prefer females. So with the gender issue, ignores people in my sexual attraction. Right. So if we just get rid of the gender stuff, then again, there's three that we go back to three options. You either like the same sex, you like the opposite sex, or you like both sexes. Something I think that we've all understood, at least for the last 25 years. But if you're a demisexual, trans, non-binary, like even other trans, non-sexual, binary, whatever people aren't going to know what that means. So I'm with it. Let's Get rid of gendered language altogether and just use male and female. Works for me. Works for me.
It's out there that you want to abolish.
No, because the concerns that you've been expressing pertain to self-identification. So if
what are they identifying with? Sorry, go ahead.
Well, this is it. Like the self-identification movement, what they're going to want to tell you, which is just one party, if you will, that's pro-trans, which I'm not part of. I'm part of a different one. What they would be telling you is that gender doesn't have any necessary or sufficient conditions other than your identity. And
so we'll jump back into that. So Dark Side of the Light saying, see, I consider myself a furry because I feel I have more closeness to some animals than humans. But I know I don't know where the rest of that went. But the like, that's fine. I think that's weird. But hey, we all do weird shit, and you should be allowed to do things that I think are weird. That doesn't change your sex. And the confusion between, oh, what I like to do is not the same thing as the average straight white man. So that must mean, again, that Colin brought up, there's this language that there's a mismatch. And that mismatch is a problem. And we, the gender-affirming pharma people, have the very, very, very expensive, very, very, very permanent solution. Yeah. Exactly. Like it's that simple. It's that simple. We have a shout out to Frosthound, who when we were talking about we originally were talking about Ukraine, which again I don't know shit about that, so I brought him on. And then after October 7th, when we were talking about Israel and Palestine, he's really good with history and he's a furry. And I mean, as long as he doesn't try to fuck me in a fucking thing, that's not an issue to me. I don't understand why the people who think this way have such a need, and I mean I kind of do get it, but such a need to glob onto their identity because they don't see the difference between an identity and a personality, and so they make their identity their whole personality. And that's how we got here. And so for you, your furriness is a part of who you are. It's part of your personality. That's not who you are. And that's okay. That's the world that I want to live in, where people can be weird. People can be different. And that society isn't upended because of it.
All of the grievances you have with that, I probably share them all, which is why I don't have that definition. My definition is someone who lives up to a social construct that typically associates with phenotype, aesthetics, and behaviors. And I'm not seeing where there is an issue here, because the word typical is doing a lot of heavy lifting. It's a bit like with mammals, right? We discovered the platypus. We changed the definition of mammal, essentially, to put typical in, because we're like, okay, there's a few exceptions. That's one of the reasons typical is involved in a lot of definitions, especially when it comes to social constructs.
So, Dark Side, why does it have to be one way or the other? Imagine if humans put aside all the squabbles and ego for just a single year, totally work together to advance the human race for the better. Well, I think that's what we're proposing. I think that is exactly what we're proposing, is that let's stop fighting over this gender stuff. Let people act as they always have. And now the new ways that people want to act, as long as, like Zibi was talking about, within the bounds of the law, then you're good. I think focusing on, I need to be identified as this, and this is my pronouns, and this is my, I think that is actively working against the advancement of the human race. And that's why, like what Colin is saying is it's regressive. It's bringing us backward. That's precisely what he's saying.
Typical is involved in a lot of definitions, especially when it comes to social constructs.
So I think where I depart from
get better comments
from what you're saying is because you have a slightly modified version of what is being said by sort of a lot of our major scientific medical organizations of how they define what the gender binary is and what it means to be transgender, for instance.
And you didn't like the video, Virgil.
So in this, from WPATH and these organizations, they will define the gender binary as this idea that there are two and only two genders. Those are called men and women. and that I'm reading this here, the expectation that everyone must be one or the other, and that all men are males and all women are females, and masculine and femininity links with that.
Well, and that's the extra part. Well, and the level of masculinity or femininity has to do with what your biological sex is. No. Disagree with that premise entirely. Like said, I don't mind people making their identity their personality as long as it's not solely sex-based. I identify as a husband, father, son, grappler, rollerblader, and friend. So much more than sex and gender. Yeah, but these people don't have any of that. These people don't have any of that. I mean, granted, neither do I at the moment, but I have other stuff that feeds into who is who is Lutch. The Indian Jesus is even just a very small part of it, despite the fact that I'm the Indian Jesus for at least 20 hours a week. That's still only a small part of who I am. So this will also get rid of scarcity and bring on Star Trek: The Next Generation economy. There we go. There we go. Dietrich said, "I think this theory is actually unachievable because there are many people just by the odds of our world population that just want to watch society and the world burn. These are the people who put a 1, so I know that you got more to say."
So according to this view, a male or a female, a man and a woman are individuals who conform to these stereotypes, who conform to these binary, socially constructed roles that in a culture is typically associated with being male or female. And then they define being transgender as people whose gender identities and or gender expressions are not what is typically expected for the sex to which they were assigned at birth.
There's that pesky word, typically. Well, typically, I don't like that word. I don't like how they're using that word. We're saying, well, this is this, typically. It seems like an escape hatch.
So this is just transgendering individuals who are just, sex non-conforming to any degree, really, if they're not conforming to what is typically associated with their sex. And this is what I believe is an incredibly regressive view, because again, this says that a boy or a girl or a man or a woman who does not conform to these stereotypes associated with their sex is not a man or a woman, or they're the opposite sex, or they're or opposite gender, or they're neither. They're non-binary. A non-binary person is not claiming to be intersex. They're claiming to be rejecting those stereotypical roles that we call man and woman that are associated with being, masculine and feminine.
Yeah, and so, obviously, this is there's a time and a place for the word typically. But when you're trying to define, have a very clear definition on something, and then you're using qualifiers that are typically, usually, maybe, it weakens the word. And you've gone so far as to weaken it to the point where it means nothing. Nothing. Hey, shout out to Guam Tech with the $5 super chat. Said if Morty could speak, he'd sound like Patrick Stewart. Change my mind. And of course, every single donation comes. Eat it, motherfucker. He's like, he can't even. I'm like, he's like, I'm too close. Put it right in my mouth. This lazy motherfucker. But thank you. So much, brother. Very, very, very much appreciated. Because if I do a pity play, will you keep my comment up longer? No, then I'll ignore you. What was part 2? Okay, so let's see. Got that, and then that. Okay, let's see. What is Dietrich saying? So, I think this theory is actually unachievable because there are many people, just by the odds of our world population, that just want to watch the world burn. These are the people who push this through the cracks by all radical means and pervert the unintelligent because it's easy to influence on the grounds of acceptance against a demonized force known as morality. I said shit. Fuck yeah, bro. Yeah, that's what it is. It's all about control. It's all about conformity. It's all about fitting in. There's no principles. There's no morals. There's no thought to, is this good for America? They act like there is. But there's not at all.
Typical roles that we call man and woman that are associated with being, masculine and feminine. And therefore to say that, I'm a sex non-conforming girl or a woman.
What does that mean?
I reject those stereotypes associated with being a woman. Therefore, I'm no longer a woman. That is where I get off the train with this ideology, because
right. And so that is the difference. That if a woman is saying, I'm not a woman because I don't look, act, whatever, like a woman. Thank you, Virgil. Actually, let me double check that's you. Okay, that is you. Those women who are self-identifying as not being women, they are the ones putting forth this notion that it is acceptable to say, because I don't look like women or act like a woman, I am no longer a woman, which then gets morphed into, well, if I cannot be a woman, I cannot be a female. And that's scientifically inaccurate.
no longer a woman. That is where I get off the train with this ideology, because that is the most straightforward reading of it.
Okay, let's give an opportunity to respond to that.
All of your concerns about assigning to people that they must have certain aesthetics or must have certain behaviors, or they must look a certain way, which is partly aesthetic, partly to do with phenotype. Yeah, I agree with you. This is one of the problems with the dialect, and that is that what happens is people can get views and get clicks if they can put up what I would argue are the worst arguments for affirming trans people, or the worst positions, such as self-identification, because that's one that I don't buy, and that's one I would see as being implicit here.
Okay, interesting. So he doesn't like the self-identification thing. So my next question would be then, how do we tell? So if you don't accept self-ID, and you're saying that this is a real thing, then the question now goes on to you: how do we tell who's a real trans and who's not? Shout out to Woodrow. Welcome to the party. Good to see ya, brother. As always. Welcome. Did I miss anything else here? Leslie said, Zippy, I was utilizing the label the community usually used to explain socialism, but my research points to socialism being coined by people like Pierre Leroux and Saint-Simon. Very anarchistic. Coined in 1832 and has nothing to do with government. Interesting. Yeah, it's an economic style, right?
Because that's one that I don't buy, and that's one I would see as being implicit here.
Yeah, so that answers my question about why he wasn't jumping down on the idea that somebody who doesn't look like a woman is automatically not a woman. And he's saying, I don't agree with the position. So that mean I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't know what his position is. Dr. Wu just asked, what are the worst? Is that a fact or just soft Vikings opinion? I mean, I think we can be fair and say that, there are definitely, arguments that all trans people are trying to fuck kids and shit like that. Like, I mean, there's even though, the numbers show that it's like 4 times as much, that's still a, not a fair play, because individuals are individuals. And if that's the conversation we're having, I mean, want to have a conversation, which group, which demographic does more? I mean, it's definitely the LGBT community. But my point is that there's definitely ways to represent this argument in bad faith, for sure.
Self-identification, because that's one that I don't buy, and that's one I would see as being implicit here. And what they do is it encourages people to go, okay, so therefore we can do away with the whole thing. But the dialect, by my light, that's like going, young earth creationism is nonsense, therefore Christianity is not true. And that's just not how it works, right? Because there's going to be other views and other arguments and other positions which are going to be making sense of the data.
It's a good question.
What I would need is how my view specifically has these problems, because I agree with what you're saying. I think that those problems do hit the other views, but not my views.
I agree that with his view that it's that to get rid of all gender and that we just have male and female. Unless I'm misunderstanding, I don't have an issue with that. But the problem is that is not the purveying. That's not where people are trying to move. People love their genders. This is the first time I've ever even heard of gender abolition. So maybe there's a cohort of people out there, but that is certainly not the pervasive idea amongst the LGBT community. They're not trying to get rid of genders. They're trying to add more. So if we're all on the side of saying there should be 2 genders or at least the minimum number of genders, then it sounds like we're all on the same side of this, except for the fact that Stephen here has to have the existence of gender while simultaneously not wanting gender to exist.
What?
I don't get it. Let's see. Said, so the left is a mushmash of Keynesians, Bolsheviks, Marxists. Yes, these are different than Lenin types, and anarchists. They will never be united. Yeah, so I think on a long enough time period, the left as it exists now is just going to crumble. The problem is that they have enough short-term gains to make our lives shitty for the time being. I don't think this is a lasting trend. Dark side. So if the Tower of Babel from the Bible still existed, would this be an issue still? I don't know. That's a good question. It's a good question. If the Tower of Babel still existed, would this be an issue still? To be honest, I'm not. I know the general idea around the Tower of Babel being where, you know, everybody was engorging themselves and pride and all that stuff, and then, you know, the tower fell. I don't know. I don't know enough to answer that. Sorry, buddy. Where are we at? A non-binary person is sort of a gender abolitionist. Yeah. And so fine, but if you're willing to get rid of the idea that we're dealing with gender at all, so non-binary is your gender identity. So if we're getting rid of it, then you're no longer non-binary. You were either male or female or intersex. If that's what it is, I'm down with it. I have a feeling that this is not what the transes are trying to do, but I'm just saying, if that's how it played out, I am with it. Dietrich said it might be an irrational stigmatic life rule, but I don't take any of the concerns or opinions of a man with a ponytail seriously. All right, fair enough, fair enough. Dr. said, I'm not Russian enough to be a Bolshevik. I must accept that fact. Yeah, that's how reality works. The dark side said, also, I realized that when we meet someone, those who get pissed off about genders being misidentified seems like an AA meeting. Like, hi, I'm Crow, and I'm a cis male. That's, yep. The gender binary abolition. There we go. There we go. The GBA all day. Let's go. Dilly to the GBA. I love it. I love it. Let's jump back and, oh, wait, we got one here from Dr. Vagina. So you can abolish your gender within yourself. You can abolish your gender for people who are not you. None of us have the power or right to decide observations for others. And that's why it's kind of tongue in cheek, because I cannot imagine that the trans community is for what I'm saying, but that's what that means to get rid of gender. Yeah. Like that's what that means to me. And when you say you get rid of something, then we're not dealing in gender anymore. We're only dealing in sex. That's what that means to me. But again, words have been obfuscated. So it might mean something completely different. I don't know.
You're saying, I think that those problems do hit the other views, but not my views. So
you've given your view, you've inserted what I call like that liberal escape hatch, where even though like being a man or a woman is what's typical associated with it, you will just still like pull the escape hatch and escape any situation.
Well, typically, like I said, typically,
where someone is not typically, looking masculine or feminine at all. And also,
okay,
this is Woodfordian gender ideology. Your view here is completely out of step with the CDC, with the American Academy of Pediatrics, with WPATH. And these are the organizations that are pushing this regressive ideology that if you are not conforming to these gender stereotypes, you are trans. You have a mismatch between your gender identity and your physical sex. And so this is why I criticize this so much, is because this is what's being pushed top down by all our scientific and medical institutions. And if you disagree with that, that's great. I would just hope that you join me in criticizing all of this nonsense that's coming down from above, rather than creating your own Woodfordian gender theory and with an escape hatch where you can just say, no, we're not held to any of these ideas of identifying with stereotypes.
Yeah, it sounds like he is trying to, again, have his cake and eat it too. Agree with us that, oh yeah, all of these problems that we talk about with sports and bathrooms and scholarships and all that stuff, those are real problems. And we need to deal with those problems. But we still want to have, people just identifying this, that, and whatever. You can't have both. You cannot have both. I mean, I would have liked if we could. Oh, that's the hunger. That's the hunger. Oh my goodness. He's dying from the hunger. You can't have both, brother. You cannot.
We're not held to any of these ideas of identifying with stereotypes.
Okay, let's deal with the escape hatch first. So your definition of a female was one that had the escape hatch of them not actually having to have functional biology. Rather, they just have to have the biology.
What a fucking cope. So you want to say it's the same thing that a man is born as a man and lives as a man, but there's something wrong with his dick and he doesn't produce sperm. That's an escape hatch to still call that person a man? When we're talking about somebody who is like Dwayne the Rock Johnson but calls himself a woman, that is still the same thing? Extending the category? Get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here.
Them not actually having to have functional biology. Rather, they just have to have the biology. I wouldn't call it an escape hatch because
that's not an escape hatch. What you're using, writing your whole argument on the word typically. Because if it's not the category, well, you've got an escape hatch. That anything that doesn't go in your definition is covered by the word typically. Well, I said typically.
I think that is one of the dialectical problems. You saying that I have an escape hatch, to me, is essentially what's going on there. Like, it's not an escape hatch. It's not like I've hidden it. It's not like the walls have been breached. I'm going to pick up and jump. It's right in front of you. Like, that is quite literally what my view is telling you. It's why typical is added to mammal because of the platypus. That's what. So the hatch.
This is just straight cope. But I gotta give a huge shout out to Soil Morty. Come on up here for the $5 super cash app. Not giving YouTube any of our money. So don't let Morty starve to death. I won't, and he is eating on your dime. Thank you so very, very much. You guys know how much it means to me, not just when you show up, not just when you're engaged in the content, but you actually part with your hard-earned money, guys. I hate to ask for it, but I love when you do it. Thank you so much. This is the only way we are going to get as big to be able to take on shit like this.
Hatch one I'm not getting, perhaps like the audience can correct us on that, because I do want to move on to criticizing your view.
Yes.
The second point
we have to wrap up part one soon, but we will certainly do that. But I want to give you an opportunity to address the rest of his.
Sure. So the second thing is what view is held by these establishments, by these people. That is something that's quite hard to gauge, right? So, like, if you take a poll of philosophers,
this is true. The little tail on the Y chromosome is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. I don't know much more than that about it, and I don't know, what it means or how it affects people's behavior and development stuff. But I remember that too. Yep. Daniel said an escape hatch isn't hidden by design. You need to know where it is to get the fuck out in an emergency. What is this dude talking about? I don't think I'm high enough nor drunk enough for this. Maybe not. Let's drink. Let's drink. Hooah!
I don't know if you would think. It sounds like you wouldn't think that philosophers really should be having a say on this conversation. But if you take philosophers, they are. Most of them will say that sex and gender are not the same thing. They don't have this biological view. And so there's plenty of people that are outside of it. Now, as for how many of them are affirming the specific views that you're mentioning, that's a little bit of a difficult one to take. But I should say this, and that is that you guys made a response to me having a conversation with Forrest Balkai. And if the grievance is that my view's different, well, I argued with Forrest and him actually having this typical view that you are mentioning on everything, including sports, including children and transition.
I love you guys.
I argued with him throughout. And if you'd watched the video, then it would have been really clear that my view isn't something that is put across by people getting the clicks by finding what I would argue is the nuts.
I agree that it's not that. What is it? I don't know. We did cover that. We did cover that in depth, the entire conversation. And I do not know what your position is on trans stuff, because I understand that Forrest is all the way for self-ID, all that, but you seem to not be for that. You seem to think that we definitely do need to have male and female sports teams and bathrooms and scholarships and private, all that stuff. So what is it that you think?
Yeah,
we need to end the we need to end part one now. Stephen, I'll give you a choice. Do you want to let him have the last word in part one? Because if he does,
Rejoinder, you go ahead, and then we'll move on to
we'll take a break.
Okay. I guess I would. My last comment would say then, under your framework, I don't know that man and woman has any referent in reality whatsoever. They're nonsensical words. They're just noises at that point.
All right, we're going to take a break. Part one, part two, you can respond. You can come back with a response to that. But we're at the hour, right? Are we at the hour?
Sorry, I think it would be remiss not just to hit this quickly.
Okay,
Colin,
okay, go ahead. Then I'm going to give him the word after.
Of course, and that's it. Because lots of definitions of social constructs have this kind of thing in it. So if we was to define what a castle is, we'd say a castle is typically something that was built for a noble. It is something that is typically built with fortification. It is typically built with wanting to house weaponry. And the reason we use that definition is because of looking at the world and trying to find a definition that fits. But it sounds like because it's got the escape hatch, which is something that I would argue pretty much all social constructs have, that you see that as a problem. Whereas I don't see that as a problem for castles. I don't see that as a problem for gender.
Okay, so the issue there is that if we were, if people were trying to make laws that you can't move into this residence because it's not a castle and it has to be a castle when it's actually a home, but we've just changed the definition, then that would be a good analogy, but it's not. Shout out to Daniel Cabrera. Look at that with a $5 super chat. First ever super chat. I am honored. The first ever super chat, and Morty is loving his treat. Thank you so much. The first ever super. I love being the first. You know, it's just a nice little feeling. I really do appreciate it. So yes, we did in fact make it through. Well, yeah, an hour of the show. So what we have is another hour or so. And they will, so if you can see here, where am I? Yeah, so there's 2 more segments, and I think if we got through this segment, that would be pretty cool. You know, this is just, they're just gonna be wrapping stuff up, but I think it would be cool if we go through this. Obviously, you know, I gotta go to work, so I'm down to do that. But then we won't have an after party. So just put a goal in the chat if you want to keep it going. Put game over if you just want to end and head to the after party. Goal for keeping the party raging. Game over to end the show.
It's a problem, whereas I don't see that as a problem for castles. I don't see that as a problem for gender.
There you go, my boy. No, I really do appreciate that, and the fact that you the fact that you've never opened that wallet and said, yeah, you deserve my money. And you think that of me? That's awesome, man. I really appreciate that.
Well,
all right, I'm going to give you the last word before we break, Colin.
It's just because you gave what you consider your definition of what man and woman is based on what is typically associated, you know, with the sexes. And then I presented you with a case where there was a female who was the most masculine and most male typical in behaviors and aesthetics you could possibly imagine, and you said that this person could still very well be 100% a woman, and I that makes no sense to me.
Okay, under the descriptive element of the definition, no, they wouldn't. Is that what you're getting at?
So, sorry, again, it seems that you don't actually agree with the definition of man and woman that you're presenting. You're saying that that is a definition that is out there that some people who are kind of regressive use, and you wish
Thanks, buddy.
to abolish that. But that is not your definition. You don't have a definition.
Oh, hey, I missed this. Shout out to Alarian Mobile. Welcome. So I'm behind the stream. You're getting the gender abolition concept wrong. I imagined that I would be. They want to attain equity between the sexes. They want everyone to identify as they, them. I knew it couldn't be that simple. God damn. Well, Guantech, Guantech fixed it. Where is it? Oh, tell me I didn't start that one. Guantech, say it again. What did you, the GAB? The GAB, where is it? Oh, no. I gotta have that one. I'm not stopping it. There we go. The gender binary abolition. That is what I'm for. Get rid of gender altogether, but keep the sex. That is the way to the future. Hey, Zippy the Strange with a gifted membership. Thank you. So very, very much, Sir Morty is loving it. Thank you, guys. All right, let's keep that party raging.
Of man or woman, because a man or woman for you can be absolutely anything, and there's nothing you could say that would invalidate it.
Is that your definition?
Oh, it must be that I haven't been clear throughout. What I'm saying,
because I spent so much time.
What?
Yeah, bro. Like, we spent all this fucking time writing out the definition, specifically reading back. I'm with Peter right now. Like,
must be that I haven't been clear throughout. What I'm saying,
because I spent so much time.
What? No. I mean, to be clear, I think I have. I've said that you will have a description of what something is, and then you may have your own view of what it should be. So if I'm describing what gender is, that is my definition. And it's going.
You're describing what gender is. Okay.
Going to have entailments that I'm not going to like, which is one of the
your definition of man.
But you don't advocate for that definition.
No, if I had my ideal world, I would have no gender. I'm a gender abolitionist. I don't think it's useful for all of the reasons that you've pointed out. I think it's just not useful. Now, is sex useful? Of course it's useful. It's something you need to know. But I don't find that gender is a useful construct.
Yeah, so, and again, I thank you to Alarian for clearing that up. But I knew it couldn't be that I'm in agreement with all the newest trans stuff. But that makes too much sense to me. They understand male and female. They want us all to be the same thing, but we're able to behave differently. So then, even within that, fine. Let's go full circle. We're all they thems, but then we, as the are going to identify a new, not gender, but something in the place of gender. That you're a cis they, and I'm this. I mean, it's so silly.
Okay, there's some agreement there then, because I would agree that we shouldn't have, those people shouldn't be forced or coerced to associate with these socially regressive, constructed roles of masculinity and femininity.
I thought he was going to say these social regressive cunts.
Socially regressive, constructed roles of masculinity and femininity. I'm all there on board. Where I get off is that I wouldn't therefore say that this makes them not men or women, or that that we should all just call ourselves non-binary, because I reject that framework of putting that man and woman are those social constructs. That is a construct that I reject. But I just, and since I use the definition of man and woman as according to biology, I just think that we should have masculine men and women, and males and females that are a wide range of masculine and femininity, and that's okay, and people should just be able to express themselves according to they want to, but it doesn't make them not males or females.
Now I'm stepping in.
Hey, he's stepping in. Let's go.
Take a break. Get some Cokes.
Yep. let's do it.
Coca-Cola. Let's
Amazing.
I caught that. I was like, let's get
everybody. This is
all
part
right.
2 of the conversation between Colin Wright and Stephen Woodford, and you can find part 1. I don't know if how we'll release these, but we don't know in this kind of conversation. I will say it's the most detailed conversation I personally have ever seen on this, and I'm finding it very, very helpful. So we just left off in which Colin had an opportunity to talk about Stephen's definition, and now I want Stephen to have an opportunity to address issues around Colin's definition of man, and then I'd like to do the other terms below. But right now, Colin, correct me if I'm wrong. Welcome back. You gave the definition of man as adult human male. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. And we also secured questions and not agreement, but we already went over, everybody understands. Okay, so I want to give you an opportunity to ask Colin any question you want about this definition.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Right. So now we're going in the opposite direction. So before, Colin was the one who was, questioning about Stephen's definition. Now we're going the other way around. So hopefully, hopefully that will shed some light on what is actually in this man's mind, because I have no clue.
Okay, so it sounds like you've put across 3 conditions that must be met in order to be considered a man. The first is adult, the second is human, the third is male. So that's correct, right? All 3 of them you must have in order to be a man. Is that fair?
Yep.
Okay, so if I can show you that one of your criterions is a social construct, would you agree that that renders your actual view a social construct?
So if one part of the definition of I assume he's talking about the definition of male or female. So he said there's 3 parts to it. And if any one of those parts is a social construct, then it would make the entire thing a social construct. Yeah, I think I can agree with that. Leslie said, I don't disagree with gender abolitionists want everyone to fall into their classifications. But how is that different than gender advocation? It's the same fucking shit. It's the same shit.
I would say it depends. I would need to hear.
Okay, fair. So
what you're saying, yeah.
I think what might be best then to do at first is let's unpack what a male is, which is a definition you've given, so we can get that back on board. What specifically must someone have to get that node, that necessary condition? What must
of male?
Male.
Okay, so he gave that.
Yeah, I was being, I was just being like, all right, let's move this along. I'll take that. And he gave the it depends. So we'll have to go into more detail. I just don't want to give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Yeah.
Before, so I'd like to read that myself. Colin's definition of male, and if you've, I just want Colin to, we've already gone over this, but it's helpful to go over it again. Someone whose primary reproductive organs, in parentheses.
We got their definitions.
Or have the function, someone whose primary, if that's all right, just for a sec. Oh, thank you, cheers. So someone whose primary reproductive organs, testicles, are organized around or have the function to produce small gametes. So first of all, I have concerns that are of an epistemic level, so how we figure this out, and then I have concerns about the ontology of it all. Is it fair to say that your definition is saying that they don't have to have ever been able to actually produce sperm?
Correct.
It's just they have to have the testicles.
Correct.
Basically, if you have testicles, that's it.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be functional. In humans, we're called gonochoric species, so our sexes are dispersed into their own individuals as opposed to like a hermaphroditic species. So we can call entire individuals males or female if they have sort of that reproductive setup.
Okay, so what's this part about?
What happens if they don't have testicles?
So if they have them removed after the fact, that wouldn't, in my view, change their sex, because this is a developmental process. It's your genes becoming expressed.
Right. In the same way that if you humans have 2 arms, but if you chop off your arm, I think that was any film who brought that up. But that doesn't mean you're not a human anymore.
Any more than like bleaching the stripes of a tiger, we wouldn't make it less of a tiger or something like that. So if they've developed testes, that's sort of what their expression of their phenotype is. They would be biologically male, even if they're non-functional.
So would that be fair to say that the definition is someone whose primary reproductive organs, testicles, are or were organized around having the function to produce small gametes?
Or would be. So when you say were, that doesn't, I wouldn't maybe say were, but I would say if they've sort of developed to function to produce small gametes, that's sufficient. Because you get, if you have like sequential hermaphrodites, for instance, sometimes they were a male and they became female. And so like, well, they used to be a different sex. If you say if they were, like a female clownfish.
I would just cut this whole line of question. Are you trying to establish that because there are exceptions that the rule does not that the rule is not a rule? Is that what you're trying to establish? Because I don't know where we're going with this.
Previously produced.
Hey, shout out to the clownfish who called that out earlier.
Sperm, but no longer does. But her primary reproductive anatomy has changed to ovaries.
So if you have it so that there's some species, such as the clownfish, that can turn from having the organs that are not testicles and then they have them, that would clarify if them having them at the moment, so whose primary reproductive organs are. Whereas if you had someone that had the ability but lost it, such as you lose your testicles, you could cover it by saying that they were. That's what I'm getting at from that angle.
Yeah, it's all coded through development. They have, they've developed these over in their lifetime, and just merely like what they would call in the literature, like acquired characteristics, like getting a limb chopped off or something. That's not, it doesn't make you no longer a tetrapod. Bleaching a tiger stripe doesn't make them no longer a tiger. You're still a red belly thrush if you're someone paints your red belly black.
So we're still making the same point over and over and over and over again. Why my Gondak says he has to dig so deep just to find any fault in the definition. Doesn't surprise me, honestly. I said shit. Me too.
Or something like that.
So where you would say gender and sex are...
There's a trans joke here. I don't have it on the top of my head.
About this specific thing to do with testicles. In the case of being man/male, it's about testicles. When it comes to the structure of society, such as bathrooms, are you saying the bathroom should be segregated based on this?
So I just want to pause. So we have not developed, so Reed put on gender, which is one of the words I also wanted to do, but we have not gone over that. Would it be helpful to you if we did gender now, or do you want to continue with the line of questioning?
So Colin, correct me if I'm mistaken, but because Colin's view of gender being so closely associated with sex, in fact, sex is a necessary condition. If I'm ever talking about sex, I am actually talking about.
So do you want to?
They're going to have an impact on the way.
Do you want to do gender? We can put gender up on the board, and Reed can write it, and then we can each give your definition of gender.
Yes, this is what we've needed the entire time. What, Stephen, do you think is the difference between gender and sex? That's been the only fucking question.
No, because I gave my definition of gender, and we've done that, right?
Yep, we did man, and we did.
Yeah.
Well, actually, we didn't do sex and gender. We did the sexes and the genders, but we didn't do sex, and we didn't do gender.
I think you should clarify that you meant man and woman is a substitute for gender.
Okay, yeah.
Okay,
so
that's
cool. So I'm glad we got the clarity. So under Colin's view, man and male mean the same thing.
Yes.
Is that fair,
essentially?
Or like
There's places. There's typically yes, Stephen. Typically yes.
Not exactly the same thing.
Yeah, not exactly, because man has as one of its necessary conditions male. So if you if there's a problem with male, it's going to feed into the definition of his man because it's one of his necessary attributes.
Is that accurate?
Yeah,
Colin?
It's going to affect it for sure.
Okay, cool. No, thanks.
So where was we? Yeah, so just for clarity, like my view would specify that man and woman I use referring to gender, whereas I'm happy using male, female to refer to sex.
And
whereas I understand that this is just the way that I see it, and this is the way that I want to break it down. The point is, it's language. I'm just trying to convey a concept, as long as you understand what I'm saying.
But I don't. That's the core of the issue. The core of the issue is that you're using language so that I can understand what you're saying, and that's not happening. And it's not because I don't understand the meaning of the words you're saying. And it's not because I don't understand the way that the English language works. The collection of words that you are putting together does not convey a rational idea.
Make it
works.
sort of
Whereas
clear as possible.
the way that Colin uses the words is the way that I'd argue most people, correct me if I'm mistaken,
Right.
they would just use man and male
Yes.
interchangeably. They're the same thing,
Correct.
they're synonyms.
Exactly.
And women and females are synonyms.
Right. So now it's your turn to give a reason as to why we should do that differently.
Is that fair, Colin?
Yeah, they're mostly synonyms, except you can still be a male and not be an adult or a human, but man is
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. So if we go back to where we was, if you wouldn't mind reminding me, Colin.
Organizing society.
Yes. Okay. So when it comes to organizing society around male, how, like, for instance, bathrooms, this will be an instance where it'll be interesting to see how your definition works with this.
Oh,
how is it that you
I remember this part. This is so frustrating. I am just warning you. Let's all take a deep breath and a drink. I warned you. I warned you. All right? I warned you. Dr. Boghossian said, what I've gathered, a soft Viking is trying to argue biology with a biologist with his feelings. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Spot on, brother. Spot on. And like I said, take a deep breath because it's about to get worse.
Be an instance where it'll be interesting to see how your definition works with this. How is it that you can organize bathrooms when, I mean, first of all, would you split it based on man and women? Males,
obviously.
Males bathroom, females bathroom to use, which I'll use from now on the definitions that you use.
Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. To split bathrooms according to sex.
Okay, cool. So that means that's consistent. I can see that. Now, here's one of the problems I have. How are you going to enforce that?
How did we enforce men using the men's room and women using the women's room for all of modern history? Social pressure. It would be weird as a man to be in a woman's bathroom. And if somebody were to have an issue with that, then they could go to somebody who has some type of authority. If it's a store, where be a manager who need to escalate to the police. That's how we do it. It's like, I'm the fuck out of here. I don't even blame you. Daniel says, is this guy being obtuse on purpose, or is he just trying to egg the other guy and calling him a slur? Like, calling him a slur? When did he call him a slur? The other guy and the calling him like a slur. So I don't think the yeah, all right, thank you, buddy. I really appreciate you guys. Definitely go check out the Dr. Evil Genius and the Talking Shit podcast. Thank you so much for being the sponsor of this stream. Thank you, brother. I very much appreciate it. Yeah, I think there's. So when you say obtuse, I assume that you mean purposely obtuse. I don't think he's being purposely obtuse, but I think he thinks that he's on solid ground. Let's put it that way. I think he believes that he's on solid ground.
I mean, that's consistent. I can see that. Now, here's one of the problems I have. How are you going to enforce that?
Stupid.
So I think that would. So I think there should be laws that should be put in place for that, or at least a social agreement that an individual who is clearly biologically male.
Are you going to check their balls?
Should feel out of place in there, and there should be a major social taboo over doing it. There should also be a legal, component of that as well. But it is admittedly very difficult to enforce. But I think there should be a case where you see someone who looks incredibly male that that you should be able to go and talk to a manager about that.
Haram.
So I just want to go back to this so I'm clear. So Reed, go back to the adult human male. So is the point of contention, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm trying to understand this, is the point of contention the consequence?
I need to get better at doing that. That one little phrase that Peter just said.
And I don't want to put words in your mouth, I'm trying to understand this.
I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'm trying to understand this, especially with somebody like Chester. Shout out to Chester, our Australian, a resident Australian. Those are the types of things that help, the little things that help facilitate conversations going much more smoothly. Shout out.
Is the point of contention the consequences from that, or the accuracy of that?
So, okay, at the beginning, what I hoped we got to, and it sounded like we did, is that there is room for rational disagreement. And what we're talking about, there was a word that you didn't like me using, but I think
Utility.
we're talking about utility.
Okay.
So the utility will come into which definition better accounts for the history, for the data, and for constructing society. Now, one of the reasons I have, many of the reasons I have the big issue with adult human female or adult human male is that I think that when you start breaking it down, you realize that there is a lot of utility problems with it. And that's what I'm doing here.
Okay, so just so that I understand, can something have a high utility value and be false?
Yes.
Okay, so your
Yep,
issue with
absolutely.
this is not that it's adult human male, is not that it's false, it's that it has a low utility.
Yeah, so when it comes to particular,
Okay, so he's saying that it has a low utility, not that it's false, that an adult human male is an accurate definition of a man, but it's got low utility, and it's better for us to all be they thems and talk about just sex if it comes to it. Now, if we take Gontek's version of the gender binary abolition versus the gender abolition, and we're just completely getting rid of everything and only talking about sex, then that is extremely utilitarian. But the way that he's talking about it, I don't really think it works like that.
Adult human male is not that it's false, it's that it has a low utility.
yeah, so when it comes to particularly gender, because I know we've got male up here, right? Because when it comes to gender, my view is that we're talking about utility. And when we're talking about the conditions that make up gender, that is where you might fall into areas where there are right and wrong answers about certain things, such as sex.
Okay, so
But
I want to put that, okay, so are you accepting that idea that Stephen put forward about utility in terms of the definition adult human male?
I think that is.
Wait, what did you say? Sorry, I was
In terms of, are you accepting that idea human male?
I think that is an objective definition of sex, but we might disagree on the utility of whether bathrooms
Right.
should be segregated on that basis.
So just so that I understand, so the reason utility is important is because it deals with the consequences of the definition.
let me take
It's,
it into
it's
an
the
analogy.
ought component of the discussion.
I guess
Oh, Daniel Cabrera. That's the case. This dude can suck my lady dick. Get it in, bro. Hell yeah. And that's the level of rationality that it has. That's it. There's no like deep. It's just stupid. It's just stupid.
I guess we could put it this way, right? Say we're trying to find a definition that's useful for castles. The point is that there are several different definitions that you can use. And the one that we're going to opt to use is the one which makes better sense of the data without having to tack on extra things, without having a problem with actually trying to assess things. So if someone was to define a castle as an old building that
Back
was
to the
built for a noble,
castle.
that's a fair definition that's going to capture some of what we mean by castle. But
Sure. So, but okay, now, but the part that you're ignoring is how does that map onto when we talk about a human and we describe them in a different way, or we add on these qualifiers like typically. So, this is not entirely disconnected from the idea of the ship of Odysseus or Theseus or whatever. They did it in WandaVision where there's White Vision and there was the same thing. It's like, oh, if you have a boat and you take out one plank at a time, once you have at any point that's still the same ship. You've just taken out one plank and replaced it with a new one. But if you do that individually with each piece of the ship, and nothing from the original ship is actually part of the ship, but at no point did it change into something else. Like, that's kind of where in the realm we're talking about, like, how do we identify things? And so when it comes to the castle thing, that yes, if we were talking about identifying a building as a castle, what are the consequences of misidentifying a castle? Not much, right? Not much. But what happens if we start a law that if you call a castle a house or you call a house a castle, you go to jail? I think we'd be a little bit more precise on what exactly do you mean by castle. Thank you, Gontek. than we are about gender.
Is built for a noble. That's a fair definition that's going to capture some of what we mean by castle. But it will fail in some instances. For instance, new castles. It will fail in dealing with buildings that were made not to house a noble. And so what I'm saying is that when it comes to gender, we're talking about which definition has the greatest utility in terms of its historicity, making sense of the data. This is why I push on secondary sexual characteristics being how we assign gender. We don't actually like cut people open and figure out what their chromosomes or their gonads are. And that's why I'm talking about the utility. Now, in the context here, forget my view. I'm taking Colin's view.
Okay.
And he's given us really clear definition of what he means by a man.
So Dan said that analogy is a lot easier to understand if you use a rake and a shovel. We do have better things to use than a ship, and it's that. Theseus, yeah, whatever. But yeah, that thing.
Okay.
And he's given us really clear definition of what he means by a man. Correct. And one of those definitions is that they have to be a male. And what I'm pushing at here is I'm saying, okay, if male is a condition, and because male is one of the three necessary things to be a man, when it comes to the utility of bathrooms, there's going to be an entailment of how the hell do we figure out who is and isn't male? And what I'm pushing at here is that there is, well, how do you do it? How do you determine?
Okay,
so there's a level of trust in society that needs to exist. The reason that people on this side of the argument can't fathom that people would just use the right bathrooms is exactly why they don't understand this. And that's also why they don't understand, like, okay, well, when we talk about predators, they think we're talking about all trans people. They're just not willing to see it from a different perspective.
There's a lot there.
I think it's largely done through self-policing because there are certain social taboos and just.
Hey, shout out to Devon Official. Welcome to the party. Good to see you, brother. You know it. It was so important. I just felt like we gotta keep the party raging. Welcome.
Respecting spaces that are supposed to be designated for one sex or the other. I mean, there should be a legal component, I believe, as well, where if I'm in a women's bathroom just standing there, going to make a lot of women uncomfortable. I think I should be able to get arrested if I'm just hanging out in a women's locker room, watching people undress or whatever, or just being there and undressing myself and minding my own business. I think I should be able to be forcibly removed from a place like that. So, yeah.
And does that relate to your definition of adult human male?
Yes, because I'm
specifically
an
male.
adult human male. I think people should be able to expel me from a women's bathroom.
Got it. Okay.
If you get arrested, what is it going to be that justifies their arresting you?
Like we said, the exception makes the rule. I mean, I'd like to see that. And yeah, these people need every detail on paper and explained in autistic detail before they can make a decision on anything. And it needs to come from somebody that they determine is an authority. It can't just be like, oh, some guy, he said this thing and I thought about it and it made a lot of sense. That don't exist. Well, what degree did he have?
Shut up!
The fact that you are in a place that you're not allowed to be legally.
Yeah, but how are they going to determine that? Because they can't
so,
come in and check your gender.
This is going back to the playing stupid, as if you don't know how to tell the difference by looking at most people, whether they're male or female. You know. And especially because the entire idea of trans is adopting stereotypes, it'd be really fucking hard not to tell unless you're purposely trying to obfuscate whatever it is. And again, now we're taking power by growing this block. Well, we're all LGBT. We're all non-binary. Even though we don't believe any of the same things, it's a false group. Just like you fucking Christians. You all think different shit. Yet you all come together and be like, oh yeah, we're a group. Hey, there he is. Welcome to the party. Our resident Australian Chester said there's no such thing as gender. Change my mind. Well, apparently that is a very progressive and woke thing to say. Apparently, which I've learned tonight, gender abolition is a movement where they want to do exactly this and get rid of all gender and we're all the they thems. So I didn't know you were a gender abolitionist. But welcome to the party, brother. Woodjoe's gotta go. Thank you so much for hanging out, brother. You have a good one.
Genitalia.
Yes, exactly. So I do think, and I mentioned this a little earlier, while I think our laws should be reflective of biology as much as possible, there are cases where, you know, your legal sex might be able to be not completely reflective of your biological sex. Say in cases of people who have complete androgen sensitivity syndrome, they're biologically male, they have testes, they're internal. But I just think, you know, socially wise, I don't think it really makes much sense to like force them to use the men's room. So there can be exceptions for very rare conditions, I think. But I think biological sex captures almost all of what we're trying to capture when we're making certain laws of like who should be able to use which bathroom.
Yeah, that's why we use the words the way we've been using them for hundreds, maybe thousands, thousands of years. Thousands of years. And people were just fine. And now people are confused as fuck, ending themselves. But yeah, no. Let's go all the way down this road before we figure out that we should have turned around 10 years ago. Devon said there are better arguments for transness that don't rely on the wildly leftist positions. I propose one of many definitions. Woman, an adult human typically associated with the feminine phenotype. That is precisely and exactly the definition that that Rationality Rules gave. And I again, I'm willing to make space for trans people, just not at the expense of space for anyone else. It's not progressive; it's conservative. Gender was invented by a progressive who also happened to be the other P word. Conservatives have never accepted it, so abolish it. So to abolish it cannot be progressive. But what you do not understand, Chester, is that this is based on logic. Leftist ideology is not based on logic. It's based on winning, or at least trying to. So it doesn't matter that you are correct, because this is a thing that they say. It's progressive.
Even if at the very margins, there could be some blurred areas where some exceptions in law should be able to be made for that.
So here, really what I'm giving you is just two objections. One is epistemic and one is ontological. You brought...
Well, wait, originally he was like, if we agree that one of you, there's three parts to being a man, and if one of them is a social construct, then the whole thing is a social construct. And we agreed to, well, he said depends, but like, okay, well, let's get that out. What social construct have you presented? Now you're objecting to what he's saying. How you didn't put your position out there. On said, I came late, didn't realize you gave that one. Fair enough. But yeah, I would agree. There's a lot of bad positions for trans people, sports, neopronouns. But I think conservatives straw man the moderates. And I agree. I think that, you know, there's too much hyperbole on both sides of this. And it's not helpful. It's not helpful. There are children who are ruining their lives. There are adults who are ruining their lives. There's people who are ending themselves. There are cultural things that are being eroded. And if there are certain things that need to change because of an organic progression of our society, that's completely fine. It's the forced inorganic changes that I really have a problem with. But yeah, I definitely agree with you, Devon. It's frustrating, but you know, the at the end of the day, it came from something that didn't need to be an issue in the first place. I think we definitely got to a place where shout out to Light of the what is it? Light of the Dark. Sorry, I forgot. I don't know if you're still here, but you know, a furry in here saying, yeah, like I feel closer to animals than I do to humans. The dark side of light. There we go. And that's already covered within behavior that humans do. You're still a man. Or actually, I didn't. Sorry, dark side of light. I didn't actually get your sex. But assuming you're a man, you're a furry. You like animals. But at no point are you trying to convince yourself or anybody else that you're actually an animal. And that's where it goes left pun intended. Vaughn says, exactly. As a social democrat, I definitely fight with leftists on this. The lack of understanding that things can't be forced too hard, too fast is frustrating.
Bingo.
And that's why we like you, Devon. That's why we like you.
Is just two objections. One is epistemic and one is ontological. You brought up complete androgen insensitivity syndrome. It sounds like what you would say is someone with a male with complete androgen insensitivity syndrome should be using the women's bathroom. And so what that means is that you're making an exception.
Yes.
Or having to
what? An exception to the rule.
Tack something onto the view to make up for the exception.
Which is only an issue if you have a rule set that needs no exceptions.
And then when it comes to actually being able to figure out who does have the condition of having testicles or not having testicles, or having testicles but they've been removed, the epistemic objection is that a society that could figure this out would be incredibly invasive. Like, we want to talk about predation or anything like that. It's insanely invasive. And so,
evasive or invasive? Which one do you
sounds like what you're saying is that no, we won't do that. Rather, we'll judge it based on secondary sexual characteristics.
Just like all of human history.
These things here, just on this one topic, by my lights, are just scratching at the surface of why this isn't the way that we define things. And it's also not a good way to define things.
Okay, so then what is the good way to define things? You have not said anything. You have not said anything. And again, let me remind you guys, I am a huge fan. I am a huge fan of this guy. I've been watching this guy's videos for at least 10 years. And I am a huge fan. I hope he doesn't see this, because I eventually would like to have some conversations with him. But even if he does, like, I gotta call it out. I gotta call it like I see it.
Well, the secondary sex characteristics, I mean, yeah, we're not checking people's gonads at the door when they walk in there, but we can make very reasonable, extremely accurate assumptions that are almost always going to be the case. Where,
especially if people aren't purposely trying to obfuscate that. Like, if you happen to be a more androgynous guy, or androgynous goes both ways, right? But I mean, if it's not very clear, then most of those people are not likely to get, to have any trouble when we're talking about bathrooms and locker rooms and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, you look weird, but that's about it. We're talking about the burly ass dudes with the big beard going, I'm just changing in the women's room. It's like, come on, bro. That's why we can't just let you do your own shit, because you run away with it and create havoc. And then when you do that because you want to feel special, then some other person who has nothing to do with the LGBT community, has nothing to do with gender dysphoria, has nothing to do with sensitivities in society, is just a pedo. So he's like, oh, hey, look what's going on there. I can definitely get in on that. And it does. That's why, even if it's not perfect, the exceptions that we use work. What do we got here? Qualtech said the best way to define things is by having your own definitions of everything. Viking lad. Good one. Well said, I like Rationality Rules a lot too. Him and Alex got me into politics inadvertently. Alex O'Connor, yeah, we just covered him recently. I love both of them. But he definitely falls flat on some socio-political arguments. Yep. Hey, well, thank you for stopping by. Always appreciated. You have a good one.
Reasonable, extremely accurate assumptions that are almost always going to be the case. Where if you see me in a women's bathroom, I mean, I should be forcibly removed. I shouldn't be, having to whip out my testicles and, for them to, see whether or not I should be removed. Even though we're using secondary sex characteristics, again, these are a proxy for our biological sex, because your sex is, so tightly linked to these secondary sex characteristics.
So take, for example, who you gave earlier, the instance of a woman who's very, very butch. So from your lights, you're going to judge them as a man because of the secondary sexual characteristics.
Yes.
And they walk into the women's bathroom. You're going to stop them?
No, and I have heard of some extremely masculine looking women facing that type of discrimination. And again,
and that's bad. That's not good that there are these cracks in the spectrum of how people express themselves and look. And that sucks. But unless you have a better idea that's not overturning our entire societal landscape, then sometimes people have to deal with shit.
Again, this is it's going to be almost impossible to create a single rule that's going to not have any issues around the edges where some people aren't going to be offended in some situations.
Exactly. So unless you have that, then it seems to me like we already had the best system possible.
I think if what we do is just like throw our hands up and say like, well, nothing's going to possibly account for every single instance, therefore we should abolish sex or any trait whatsoever to be using bathrooms. Well, that's like the worst of all possible worlds, because now it's just a free-for-all and anyone can go anywhere and no one can tell anyone to leave anywhere. I think there's just a pragmatic way we can go about it where, it's not perfect, but it's like the least bad of all situations.
Okay, I'm going to give you, if you want to comment, and then I want to, we will scrunch it down, and then I want to go over the other half of the words that we talked.
All right, so since we're moving pretty quickly, we're near at the end of this part, and then I think they're just closing things up. So fuck it, let's party! I am already in the after party channel. Let us speak. If you are a member of the Indian Jesus Discord, or if you're a member of the Indian Jesus YouTube channel, you get access to the full Discord server. If you are not, feel free to join and get all the free goodies. We got the free chat. We got the current events channel. Stuff going on in there all goddamn day. But if you want to be on screen with me, not stuck behind your keyboard, on screen with me and everybody else, you can come if you want to, but you don't have to. Either way, it is a grand old time. Come and join us.
Yeah, that sounds good. So my view here, obviously we're running out of time, so we can't go too much with the back and forth. But my view is, just by taking one of the attributes, sex, and one social situation, which is bathrooms, because obviously we've got so many other things to consider in society when it comes to our categorization. The fact that you're making these exceptions and the fact that you're giving ground to what is essentially my view.
No, it's not your view. It's just exceptions to the rule. It is not at all your view. In what way does, sometimes people are going to get discriminated against when they go into the bathroom, mean that we should get rid of gender and all be they, thems? Talk about a fucking leap.
Which is based on phenotype. These are some of the motivations for why I don't think that that's a very good definition. And actually,
I'm missing a bunch here. Sorry.
Utility is better to use my one. If you want to leave it there with Colin getting the last word to that, and then we'll move to adult.
I just don't think that basing it on phenotype is going to be the best, because again, that's entering the realm of pure subjectivity, where you're going to have, it's a very effeminate male who's just like, oh, I might as well just go and use the women's room. But even though they're clearly male, or maybe they think they pass much better than they do. And
guess what? People already do that. People already do that. As long as you're not trying to create a problem, then most times people who like, if you are a woman and you see some femboy walk into the bathroom talking pre-trans, you might, but hey, as long as they're going to the stall doing their own thing, whatever. You're in the men's room and you see like, someone who you're not really sure, like, as long as you're not trying to do anything, then that's it's not right, but it's fine. Shout out to Altia. Sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Welcome to the party. So I think a better idea is single stall gender neutral bathrooms where applicable. Don't see why some people are opposed to it, because I know I don't want to share a public bathroom with anybody. I definitely agree. The problem is that we already have places where the plumbing and the fixtures are meant for two different bathrooms, and to change that, especially when, like, think of like a sports stadium, then to have individual stalls for 10, 20,000 people is in a lot of cases not reasonable. But I mean, like, we all have gender neutral bathrooms in our homes, right? Like, I mean, maybe you don't, maybe some of you don't, but I only got the one bathroom. So if a woman is here, if a trans is here, if a gay is here, if a They're all using the same bathroom, and it's all good as long as you don't pee all over my bathroom or try to. I was gonna say something spicy, but that will be for the after party. Altia, welcome to the party. CBS said if you can pee in a beer bottle without spilling, you might just be a man. If you can pee in a beer bottle, period, you got a little dick. Chester said we can get rid of gender. It's a false and unscientific concept. People who think gender is real are either brainwashed or they don't know what it intends to conceptualize. I agree with that. I like that. Yep. Just said gender neutral. You mean sex neutral. There you go. Yep. There you go. All right, let's finish this up.
This room. But even though they're clearly male, or maybe they think they pass much better than they do, you're still going to make women feel uncomfortable. There's still sex differences in sort of the behavior and the threat of sexual violence they pose to individuals.
Stephen, do you not care about violence against women?
It is worth clarifying.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, by my view, that isn't what's going to happen, because sex isn't a necessary condition of gender. And I'm open to, if you want to have, I mean, the best case scenario is just have one type of bathroom. That's it. But obviously, that's not something that we've built our society around. It's not something that we've got. But my view is that if you want to do it based on sex, you've got room to do that. But the problem is the implementation of it. And the fact that once there's a little bit of pressure, we actually reveal that we don't have society set up to be able to check people's testicles. We don't want society set up to test whether or not they've got this male condition.
And the only implication that, well, how do you test that? Comes from everything must be, as Guantek said before, it must be verified on paper by an authority. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. So we can't just live as human beings and see like, oh, I'm a man, so I'm going to go into the men's room because as a normal man, I have no desire to be in a place where women are pooping and don't want me there. It's pretty simple. I would say the overwhelming majority of people of either sex feel exactly the same way, which is why this has never been a problem until you created a problem. Not you, Stephen, but you on the other side of the conversation.
And it would be incredibly expensive and silly and stupid by my lights. And it sounds like you agree. So it sounds to me that you have to make the exception. You have to go, okay, when it comes to this condition.
Yeah, but I mean, even think about like, maybe in like suburbs and stuff that might work. And in big cities where you have, you would just have one bathroom anyway. But again, like, what about the sports stadium? What about, anywhere where people gather? What about a mall? What about, you know what I mean? Like the space that it would take up to have, to prevent lines and lines and lines of people. I mean, I don't know if you've ever been to a music festival, but they got a whole long line of porta potties and they are all single use. And those lines are nasty. So I think at this, like, if all new buildings needed to have at least one gender neutral bathroom where it was one room that just had a toilet and a mirror and a sink, I think that is not unreasonable. I don't think that you should be forced. Like that's where the conversation goes for me. That you can't have a business unless you're going to have a gender neutral bathroom. I don't like that. But in terms of just practically how the how we could move forward, that to try to now implement this, I think that would be fine. But changing all the businesses, especially after all the COVID stuff, there's just not the space. There's not the money. That it's just not a real. I mean, he's a little girl, although I'm a 62-year-old man. Well, I mean, you could go clean up and do like Lady Ballers did.
You have to make the exception. You have to go, okay, when it comes to this condition.
Right. So what is your rule set that does not need an exception?
We have to make an exception to the definition that I choose, whereas my view wouldn't have that problem.
Well, I mean, this comes,
but we still have male and female. How does that change that? This is what I'm not understanding. How does it change the problem of having two different bathrooms just by getting rid of the gender words. We still have male and female, which you agree to.
To the idea of that I think it should be mostly a self-policed activity of people who are biologically male or female, who are policing themselves mostly. I mean, I think there should be a law around it as well.
But that law isn't going to be super necessary if you don't have a bunch of perverted people trying to abuse the laws. And so if you set society up in a way where even though the trans people are not doing anything wrong, you're setting up something for somebody who is not trans, can pretend to be trans, has nothing to do with the LGBT community, but they're pretending because for the last 70 years, they've wanted to RPay children. And now this is just the new easiest way. I don't hear anyone on the left addressing that. Like, oh, you think they're all grooming and then no. I'm talking about practical reality.
And there should be a social taboo of someone who knows they're male going into a female space. Yeah, I mean that's
sorry. How do they police that though?
Bro, he just said that by people doing it themselves.
Because they know what sex they are.
And yeah, as I said before, if you're at an establishment, you go to a manager. If you need to escalate to the police, you escalate to the police. That's what laws do.
Because individuals know what sex they are. So
no, but they can't. Oh, you're saying so the individual.
I think it should be self. I mean, it's going to be self-police in most cases because you don't have police in every bathroom checking genitals at the door or their gonads.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, largely it's a social taboo that should be self-policed. I do think there should be a legal component where if someone like me is just in the bathroom and not moving, and it's a lot of women are complaining about it, they should be able to.
Sorry,
the beloved, trust me.
Just one quick. The not moving part you mentioned earlier about like just looking at people, like there's like a predation element to this.
Or if I'm just in there,
well, like bathrooms and people taking their clothes off and being in a vulnerable state. Why? What? I have no idea why that would have anything to do with predation. And again, Stephen, it's you who is making the assumption that it's the trans people that we're talking about. You're the one making the connection between predation and being trans. We're talking about trans people and how they use the bathroom, and then predators and how they're abusing sensitivities. You are the one putting them in the same group. We are the one saying, hey, these other people that are not part of your group are going to abuse the sensitivities that we have to your group.
You mentioned earlier about like just looking at people, like there's like a predation element to this.
Or if I'm just in there washing my hands, like.
Oh, okay. Because like the predation part seems to be very strange. Like you get people.
Yeah, that I totally agree. Like if it's possible, let's do it. Let's do it. It literally is not a thing that is going to hurt anybody, and it is a thing that is going to help people. So do it. Forcing it though. Now we're forcing people to spend money, and I'm not about that. Also goes on to say, I'm just coming from the point of view where a British politician had men's and women's signs added to already gender-neutral bathrooms. They were already single stall, but arbitrarily separated. It's so silly. It's so silly. Just go and do your business and go on with your day. Just go do your business. Like, do people not have, like, I think about this all the time when I'm driving, and I drive a lot as a private dog trainer. I'm always driving around the state to people, but it's like you get caught behind somebody when you're driving, and it's like, what are you doing on the road right now? Are you not headed somewhere? Do you not have things to do that you can just climb at half the fucking speed limit? Same kind of thing. What are you doing in the bathroom that you have all this time to do anything besides go to the bathroom and wash your hands? That already is weird. Okay, that's it. Mandatory genital checkers on every toilet and urinal. I am done with this argument. Yep. So am I. That's where we're just finishing this last piece here. I'm gonna give, Rationality Rules his full due. For better or worse, but
my hands, like.
Oh, okay. Because like the predation part seems to be very strange. Like you get people when they talk about this topic, they speak about trans people as if they're all predators, and it's like we wouldn't do this with gay people, right?
See, you're the one doing that. You're the one doing that. Projection. Shout out to Michael over on IG. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, I mean, it's exactly that. And I hope that Colin has something, sharp to say to this. Because as I've just explained in excruciating detail, it's not about trans people being predators. It's about people pretending to be trans who are already predators. That's a different group of people.
Oh, okay, because like the predation part seems to be very strange. Like you get people when they talk about this topic, they speak about trans people as if they're all predators, and it's like we wouldn't do this with gay people, right? We wouldn't say gay people use the same bathrooms as the gender they're attracted to. Therefore, it's fair for us to set up scenarios where they're just in there looking at boys. Yeah. Like we wouldn't do this. That's gross, right?
Right, but there already are guys who want to just look at little boys. Those people still exist. Just because trans became a thing doesn't mean that pedos evaporated. You're the one saying or thinking that when we're talking about predation in the bathroom, you're the one whose mind goes to, with the trans people? Like, why would you think it would be the trans people? Bigotry.
To set up scenarios where they're just in there looking at boys. Yeah. Like we wouldn't do this. That's gross, right? So yeah, with the transgender,
I think there should be a legal route to forcibly remove me from a women's room or a locker room.
Okay, so I want to. We are running out of time, since right. So Reed, squint it down, please.
All right,
and then I want to go over.
So they're headed to the back to the chart to kind of recap everything and kind of give their final thoughts. So I think we, again, huge fan of both of these gentlemen. Huge fan. But this was not it. And I mean, I would love to have the opportunity to sit down with Stephen and talk about this. I'm no Peter Boghossian for sure, but I think I have an understanding here of where the misunderstandings are occurring. Yeah, right. I used to get road rage so bad, but somebody, there was some anecdote about like, the chances of it was a couple things. Number one, from being a stoner, like, hey, for class, like once you're late, you're late. If you're gonna be late, you may as well finish the blunt. But then about driving specifically is that the risk that you take when you're speeding around and like letting yourself get like super angry. Like number one, it's already because driving is a stressful thing, so you're already at a level 7 out of 10 just getting in the car. And then to exacerbate that is not good. But yeah, to save like 30 seconds of travel time to go a little, I used to be really bad with it, but gotten better. So said it's not projection from them because they don't believe in evil or understand it. They are just narcissists. The poor kids who struggle with this are being brainwashed by evil people. Also, that is not an argument to say gay people, but the issue is different. Sexuality versus sex. There's nothing to do with gender. Fair. Gauntlet's got a Viking lot. How do you police the men trying to look at little boys? See, I can do it too. It's right there. It's right there. It's right there. And again, I know that Stephen Woodford is more intelligent than I am. He is way more well-read on, I'd say, most things than I am. But this ain't it. This ain't it. There you go. There you go. Well, you got a new baby to take care of. So that is totally, totally the way to go. All right, guys. So I am already in the after party. If you are a member of the channel, just head on in there. We are going over to the after party. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's give a big shout out to Peter Boghossian, who came into the chat. Shout out to Dietrich, who said rats find their way into something, even if it makes them look foolish, trying to squeeze through the smallest hole. The intersex argument is the hole to bring the plague of the non-binary cult ideology. Fuck yeah. Then we had, we'll go with Gontek with the gender binary abolition. GBA all day. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And then, of course, we had not one, but two people with the $5 super chats. We had our boy Zippy the Strange with a gifted membership. Of course, we had our girl Soil to Soul with the $5 cash app, not giving YouTube any of our money. And of course, the sponsor of the stream, Dr. Evil Genius. Thank you so much, guys. If you are not part of the TSP community, you have to be. You have to be. It is a place to be. Thank you so much, guys. I really, really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me, engaging in this, and especially when you're putting, open your wallet and supporting this movement. That's what it is. It's a movement. It's a actually, I don't know what it is yet, but it's going to be something, and you guys are supporting it. And that means the world to me. So thank you so much, guys. I am already in the after party. So if you are looking to hang out, head over to the after party. Once again, Morty is gone. So I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, I am out of here. Peace.